a little, I don't know, sing something to the mic or whatever you would prefer to do for a mic check. Okay, one more time. Okay, a little higher pitch, a little lower pitch. The pitches weren't necessary. It was just for personal enjoyment.
Okay, yeah, all good, all good.
Oh, do you smoke it all then?
Do I smoke it all? Not anymore.
Gotcha.
I think the last time I smoked was through a cart, and my first time smoking a cart. Mm-hmm. So I should have taken that into way more precaution than anything.
Did you get hit with the...
It was a lot. It was a lot because I think I was always used to smoking joints before, and I think the very first time I ever smoked was with Chris Thayer through a bowl. Mm-hmm. So then one time I saw someone like selling these like carts on Snapchat. It was Nick Mana, and he was like selling. I was like, oh, okay, cool. He was like selling to like some close friends and whatnot. So I was like, you know what? I'm kind of interested because I saw the different flavors. Like that sounds kind of good to get like high off of. Yes. And so the one that I bought off him was mochi. Yeah, right.
That sounds dangerous, bro.
Yeah, it was. So then I was just like, cool. So like, what do I do? Because I was like so like inexperienced with it. So he's like, oh yeah, you just got to go to like maybe like a smoke shop or like maybe a convenience store that has it. But you need like a little pen to like heat up the wax. And I was like, oh okay, that sounds pretty easy. So I went and bought it off him, got a pen, heat up the wax, and then I was ready to go. It was Rick and Morty themed, by the way.
Beautiful. You were truly ready to go.
Right. Mm-hmm. Which I never watched. Never watched it. But so it was I smoked that, and well, the first time I smoked it was Robert and I were planning to go watch Demon Slayer.
Cool.
The Demon Slayer
movie.
The
movies?
Yeah, the Mugen Train movie. And so he was like, we'll just pregame in the car. So that's what I did. I started first since he was driving. Mm-hmm. So I took a first big hit, and he knew a bit more about carts than I did. He was like, you probably don't need to take any more than like 2 hits to feel like pretty damn high. I was like, okay. So I took like one pretty decent hit, and then just did it like normal, and then I was like, waited a couple minutes, and I was like,
cue the Jimi Hendrix song.
I don't feel anything. So then I was he was like, you know, maybe take another hit. I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. So I took another hit, probably about the same sized hit, and waited a couple more minutes, trying to let it like ease in, whatnot. Oh, no. Nothing. Mm-hmm. So I was like, the fuck? It's like, is this thing like not working? Is it like?
Oh, I forgot to tell you, it's pure CBD, man.
Oh. Fuck. No. No. So then he was like, then I asked him again, I was like, should I take another hit? And he was like, if you want, or you can just like let it ride out a little bit more, up to you. I was like, fuck it, we're going to be watching a movie.
Go time. Yes.
So I took another hit, not as big as the first two. Mm-hmm. And then on that hit, however, I started like coughing a lot.
Oof.
So I was just like, okay, that one like was a little burnt.
Oh, quick side derailment. Have you ever taken a dab before?
No.
Like the heroin equivalent to weed?
Yeah, no, I have not. But like carts are like kind of close to that, right? Because like it's a wax, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have to heat it up with like a lot of heat.
Yeah, people use fucking blowtorches.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. Mm-hmm. Like blowtorches. So I was thinking, it was like, are carts like on a very like smaller level of that?
I think so. The high is it's a form of weed for people, especially my mom listening. I'm not doing anything but weed aside from that. Weed and psychedelics, of course, but yeah, it's the most powerful form of it you'll ever get. Either that or like 1,000 milligram edible or on par. You will get, if you're new to it, the slump, the coughing to an nth degree like you've never had before, right? And the hungers. But sorry, anywho, continue your the cart story.
Yeah, so I started coughing a lot. He was like, okay, well, now it's probably going to hit because, like, you're coughing up the rest of, like, your regular oxygen, and now all of that is, like, going to your lungs, and you're probably going to get pretty high. So,
it's
like,
fucking weird how that works. That coughing does seem to get you more high.
Yeah, it's, like, almost like it's all, like, the, I don't know, cannabis vapors and whatnot that's, like, pushing your regular oxygen out, and then it's just I don't know how it works necessarily, but But yeah, then we went to Wawa to grab food before the movie. And when I got out the car, I was just like, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I am gone.
Mm-hmm. How are you with socializing in that state? Like, are you I giggle at the cashier for like 5 minutes before?
So I had like a 10 million yard stare instead of just a regular 1,000-yard stare. I went around to grab my drinks and my food like kind of normally. I would say I like probably browsed a bit more than normal, just probably because like now I'm like, oh, I know I'm gonna get the munchies, so like I'm gonna stock up and hibernate.
Oh, that's what I was thinking, man. That's the worst, to take the hit right before you go food shopping.
Yeah. So then what happened was I grabbed a couple drinks. I grabbed I think I got like a egg bowl or something that they had at the kiosk. Some sort of thing like that. Yeah. Then I got like some sort of snack, and I was waiting in line, and the line felt forever. But I was right behind Robert, and I remember I just remember dozing, like almost dozing off, but like my eyes were like super heavy. Standing in line, I was just like, And then like out of nowhere, at one point, like I think I had this like genius and like super woke idea, like that was gonna be like super revolutionary. And then I was about to tell Robert, like my eyes went from like little slits like Brock from Pokemon to like
I've seen
super
the lights.
wide.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I was like, dude, to Robert, like standing right in front of me, I was like, dude. And the idea escaped my mind, and I was like, then I went back into my little like my little slump. I was like, oh.
So how was the movie?
Oh, terrible. No, it was a good movie. My experience was terrible because I went there. As we were watching the movie, before we even went into the theaters, I was eating my food like on the way there. I was like, I may as well eat my food now. I'm not gonna bring it in, except for like maybe my drink. So then I ate my food in the car, and then I remember like feeling like shit once we got to the theaters. I was just like, oh my god, like I don't know if it's because of like what I ate or like if I smoked too much, like maybe I'm greening out. So I think it was like a mix of both, probably more on the lines like greening out. Probably it was just like way too much. Like,
dude, that's an unspoken part of the weed experience.
Yeah, so that's why I've been scared ever since, because more often than not, every time I have smoked or gotten high, I've greened out.
Yeah. Do you like faint? Like you get that kind of lightheadedness? My stomach starts to hurt.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen with two people while smoking with them. It's the weirdest thing because you'll see them like, zoning out and then get very pale. And then you just kind of know it's going to hit them in a second. And then they'll just like faint. It's pretty fucking freaky. Usually like we've caught them consistently. And it's only happened, I think, twice out of probably the hundreds of times I've smoked with two separate people. But I think now that weed's becoming more popular, that needs to be a more talked about thing. Because a lot of people will say, like, nah, man, there's no bad side to it. You used to have a good time, maybe a little more hungry or tired than usual. But no, you can get that nervousness, the super anxiety, the stomach ache.
Yeah. It can definitely induce some sort of like paranoia with it, especially if you're not used to it at all. I did like research before smoking for the first time, and I was like, how to properly smoke, what am I supposed to feel like, what do people think of, what all that type of stuff.
Did it help?
A little bit, yeah. So I was like, it taught me how to smoke properly, because like my idea of smoking before was like you inhale then you exhale, but it's like inhale but then like you kind of suck it down a little bit,
like fill the mouth then pull it to the lungs,
and you hold it there, and then you slowly exhale it out.
Then cough.
Then die. Then go watch Mugen Train. But yeah, so throughout that entire movie, like probably 3 or 4 times I went to the bathroom to throw up. And it was not like regular type of it was like kind of like projectile almost. And it was a different color too, might I add, because I had Slim Jim's brand chicharrones. So it was like spicy chicharrones. So it was red vomit. Sorry. It was red vomit. It was red vomit, and it was like in the toilet. I was like, oh my God. am I gonna die?
Literally,
Like,
that's a
am I just
reasonable
gonna-
question with red vomit.
Yeah, so I was like, is this blood? And I was like, no, that's chicharrones. I see the chunks.
Oh, thank God you were.
Yeah, so-
God forbid you took a few more hits, you couldn't even tell anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. But at that point, it was like it was on the come down. Like I wasn't high anymore. I was no longer having like this like that peak experience of like just not knowing what the fuck I'm doing. But it was more so just like trying to like get it out of my system now.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm just purging.
Yeah, exactly. So then that's why I was like throwing up a lot. And Robert knew this. Robert knew that I was like in a bad state. He smoked too before we went in, but he had a good high. I had a bad high. And we had our other friend Brian at the time, some guy I met at college in one of my coding classes. And we got like close like pretty quick. And it was funny because he was kind of like the innocent, like pure one at the time too. Oh, we turned him now.
Welcome to the jungle, baby.
No, but what happened was I had gotten into the theaters. We saw him because he met us there. And what had happened was I saw Robert go in first. I had to stay in his car and like throw up a little bit more. And I just kind of sat there a couple minutes to like kind of wait it out. And then, just kind of like breathe it out and do some breathing exercises. And then I went in and I saw him and he was like, "Hey, what's up, Benji?" And another nickname that sorry.
I like the little eyelash flare.
Sorry. It's a nickname that like I've wanted to kind of like get people to call me ever since like
You remind me of Centauri, yeah.
yeah. So like ever since like high school, but that didn't happen because everyone was so used to call me Ben. So like when I got to Rowan and like when I went to college, I introduced myself as Benji to people. And it's like, oh, okay.
Does anyone call you Benjamin?
Benjamin? No. God, I hope not. It takes too long to say.
Fair enough.
No. So he's like, "Hey, what's up, Benji?" And he's like all smiley, happy to see me, and I'm just like,
Is it something I did?
exactly. That's what he thought. He thought it was him, and I was like, I felt so bad, but I also didn't want to tell him that I was high because I was like, I wonder if he has this like sort of image of me right now, where it's just like, is he like just chill guy that doesn't do drugs and stuff like that? I was like, well, I've only ever smoked weed, so then
Now I'm poisoned.
yeah. So we were at the concession stands trying to get like some snacks. He was getting snacks. I was just staring at the super bright screen that was like flashbanging me. And then he was like, "Hey, Benji, do you want anything? Like, you want popcorn? You want a drink? Like, I got you." I was just like, "No, I'm good." Like, I was like kind of one-wording him very bluntly. Like, it wasn't like it wasn't my intent to. I was just feeling like shit.
Yeah.
So then in his head, when I finally told him, and when he told his part of like his POV of it, he was like, "I thought I did something wrong. I thought you hated me. Like, I thought like I was being a bad friend at one point." I was like, "No, Brian, I was just high as fuck, and I was just gone." So like, it was not the best of times for me. So I had to I rewatched the movie when it came out on Crunchyroll.
Sober?
Yes, yeah, and there was a lot of scenes that I didn't remember. He was like, "Well, you went to the bathroom for this part. You were here for this one." I was like, "I was."
You were really too high for that part, and then so on.
That's exactly what happened.
Dude, isn't that the strangest thing? Interacting with a stone cold sober person, not only stone cold sober, but habitually stone cold sober. Like they never do anything.
Yeah, like almost like oblivious to the idea that that was like possible. Yeah, it's like he's met people that has done like bad stuff before. It's just he didn't.
Bad stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I never really liked that idea either. If you want to smoke and you want to try and get high for the first time, sure, go for it. Just make sure you're in a good environment to do so. Like you trust the people that you're doing it with. If you are doing it with people, I would probably recommend doing that. That way they can take care of you.
Especially your first time, yeah.
Exactly. So that's why I was like, so they can take care of you. But I wouldn't put like a negative stigma behind it where it's like, it's not the worst thing that you could do. I wouldn't even say it's that bad. It's just if people want to get high, people get high. It gets like really bad maybe if they need to stay high 24/7 to function correctly.
It
like
seems
when they
to
become
come down
dependent
to,
on it.
Yeah, right? If your relationship to it is, this is a crutch, this is the thing I need, and not only I need to stay a little high constantly, I need to be fucking shit-faced.
Exactly.
Like, there's a very easy-to-find dark side to the world of drugs. I was mostly just fucking with you earlier, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that side is very real. Especially seen through the eyes of just someone who doesn't dip their toes into that world. It can really become, I would imagine, overwhelming because that's such a wide world of and even calling it drugs feels weird because like there's so much of a dark connotation around drug.
Yeah.
It sounds almost like an evil word in and of itself.
So you gotta like kind of balance it out by saying, it's just something recreational, something like more fun, less,
Less shooting up in like an apartment by yourself.
Yeah. Where you're tying the band around your
Train
arms.
spotting. Yeah. Bro, did you ever see that movie? Train Spotting?
Train spotting? No.
You know the guy who played Obi-Wan Kenobi in the with Qui-Gon Jinn?
That one, no.
Wait,
I don't know. I
have
don't
you
know
seen
the
it?
actor.
Yeah, it's just that actor when he's really young. It's a movie about a group of people who are heroin addicts. It's on Netflix. It's a wonderful and fucked up movie. Like I recommend it if you're into that sort of thing. Have you touched that sort of world while you were in college? Not that level, but just like the. It seems like so many people get like fucked up in college, not just a little high, a little drunk. Like no, like people passing out lawns and shit.
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen that with like frat parties. I think by the time I was already in college, I was too focused on like trying to just perform well, because I guess part of me was always like a bit studious. So I wanted to perform well in college, especially because like, I'm trying to like earn my degree now. Because I mean, like high school was like a breeze.
Yeah,
like anyone could just not try in high school and you could still pass. Like I don't know, it was just at least that's what it was for me. But for college, there was definitely dark times for me in college, especially my first year. But I never because like of how I was feeling in college, ever thought of like resorting to like drugs necessarily in that sense, like of like wanting to get high to escape the reality. There's a different part to like the dark side of that story that we can dive into like later if you want.
Yeah, fuck it. Oh, real quick, you see these little knobs up and down the the shaft of the sand? Would you mind raising it up a little bit? You're taller than I expected. And then put the mic a little closer to your face. Cool. And then just pull it so it's like a fist from your face, something like that.
Yeah.
So let's go. Official. What are your this is just something that fascinates me endlessly. What are kind of your coping mechanisms? I don't even know if that's the right word to call it. That sounds so doctor-esque. But when you're in a really tough spot, like what do you kind of do to get through it?
So I found out about lo-fi.
Oh, fuck yes.
I found out about lo-fi in college. I didn't know that it was called lo-fi. I've listened to things like that before. I just never knew the genre name, like say like back in high school. I didn't know the genre name, so I just kind of listened to it. I was like, oh, this is chill. I just thought of chill music. And then at one point someone was like, oh, you ever listen to lo-fi? Do you listen to lo-fi? I was like, what's lo-fi? And I was like, then I looked it up. I was like, oh, I've definitely heard this type of stuff before. I just didn't know it was called lo-fi. But now that there's a name to it, I like looked it up. I made like these playlists of it. So I listened to lo-fi for
the lo-fi girl?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, the lo-fi girl. There's like all the other. I don't know. Just Spotify has a ton of different things that people do. People do like lo-fi versions of like game like soundtracks.
That
too.
sounds cool. Oh, for like a Pokemon.
Pokemon lo-fi, Legend of Zelda lo-fi, everything.
That's some shit I gotta find actually now.
Yeah,
because I'm also a heavier lo-fi listener.
Yeah. So like something that just kind of like makes me think of like kind of like more peacefulness. Like I kind of always been more accustomed to, I guess, in your words, like of coping, thinking of myself in an environment that has nothing to worry about. So like, and that for me is like just sitting around in like what is like nature. So thinking of like just sitting around in nature. So I think of listening to lo-fi and it puts me in like that place in almost in like an outer perspective looking at myself.
That's really fucking cool. That's something that's so known for overstimulating people, modern technology, that through that people now have access to one of the most zen things you could find.
Yeah, and it's like it goes like kind of underappreciated sometimes. People listen to like other like a ton of different things. People will like whatever you need to do to like feel better. But for me, it's just lo-fi or like it's like in a form of meditation. Although I have tried meditation for myself as well. But yeah, it's definitely, it like kind of puts you outside of yourself, and like you just kind of feel at ease with everything.
What kind of meditation have you tried?
So I've just done like just simple like just like inhale of like 2 to 4 seconds, exhale for 4 to 6, and just counting the numbers in your head, like inhaling and you're counting that the breath in, then you exhale and you count the breath out. And I kind of have like very low I guess it's kind of like something that induces more of like a meditation sound, so like nature sounds, or like hearing like a gong maybe, just anything that's just not overstimulating, I guess.
Have were you raised with any particular religion?
Buddhism at a younger age. Then like we kind of fell out of that practice. Like we didn't go to like temples as much. But more recently I've been getting back in touch with like that type of stuff. Yeah.
Cool. I'll dive into that in a second if I remember, but because of Centauro, I've gone to temples probably more than I ever have before. And when I go there in churches, for Christian churches, you'll hear often singing the hymnals, the stereotypical but when you go to the Buddhist temple, they go for the longest fucking chants that I've ever heard. And if you really tune into it, you'll get into this like trance, like this meditative trance. Have you experienced those at some of the temples you've went to?
So I haven't really sat there for like the prayers or like the hymns and stuff like that. Most of like the meditation that I've sat through was just more so of like of my own. Just kind of like, because at the time that I have heard them, I was there for like a specific like festival. So they did like prayers before the festival, and I was part of a lion dancing group.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. So I was I got introduced into like lion dancing, and I was like thinking in my head like, because I was asked if I want to practice to do lion dancing, and I was like, that sounds
Are you
really
saying lion or lion?
Lion dancing. And he was asking me like, do you want to practice doing this? And I was like, sure. Like I've seen it all the time as a kid, and it was always super exciting to kind of watch them like prance around and just like kind of like just shake their mouth and eyes at you. Although I don't know, it just felt like a nice like festival. So I was like thinking in my head like, I kind of want to give that back a little bit, seeing that as a kid. So then when I was part of the lion and like this whole performance, like we saw like kids there, and like I would just like kind of like, because I'm in control of the head, so like we're holding the head with one hand.
Cool.
Like I think it's this hand, this hand, and then this hand is controlling the mouth flap, or like a string in there that you hold to pull the eyes shut and close. And so like I can only see through the mouth part, so like I'm like staring at people and like staring at like kids, and I'm just like flapping my mouth, and they're just like all giddy and happy, and then they shove money into your mouth. So
That sounds so cool.
Yeah.
And fun. Does it ever like hit you in like the eye or something?
So
Someone throws a penny.
so I was like, I didn't understand. Like I was like, how am I supposed to like grab the money like and still perform at the same time? Because otherwise it's just gonna
That'd be
fall
so
to the
awkward
floor.
if you just stop the performance, reach your hand in to grab the money, and like,
Yeah, so it's like they'll sometimes either just shove it into the mouth, or they'll hold it in front of the mouth and you grab it. So like now I have to hold the head, this like 10-15 pound head, just like with one hand just like kind of like resting on your shoulder a bit. And it's like it feels a little uneven. And then you grab the money.
Wait,
but then
through the mouth or like is
through
there
the
an
mouth. Yeah.
Cool.
So it's just a hand just
Just
coming out
imagine
the
a
mouth.
kid. What the fuck?
What is that? But yeah, you grab the money there, and then I was like, the first time I did it, I was just like, I don't know where to put the money, because I don't have like pockets necessarily right now, because like the lion dancing pants that we had, I don't think had pockets. Either that, or you don't really have time to just shove it into your pockets, because it's like they keep
Go,
going,
go,
and
go.
and yeah. And like we're doing this routine, so if you fall behind in the routine, it's gonna be like, it's gonna feel a little awkward. It's gonna feel like messy. So, then I just remember like this little kid. She kept like giving the money, and every time I dropped like $1 or $2, she would go to grab the money and shove it in my mouth again. I was like, this is so adorable, but like I need to perform as well. So like I'm like sidestepping around to like continue performance and stuff like that. Then like we did like a parade in like a circle, and then afterwards they collected all the money anyways. But then I was like, dang, what can I do next time to like make sure I can just like keep a hold of the money? So then someone suggested that I tuck my shirt in and then just throw the money in here. That way it doesn't fall out necessarily.
Is there not like a decided technique, or is that the technique of the veteran dancers?
Typically, before they would have a person like walk around with like a donation bucket, so that would work way better. They could just collect that rather than shoving it into the lion's mouth. But it's like sometimes also part of the tradition that if you're giving the money to the lion, you're like now giving yourself the luck, and people want to like have that like that type of tradition and that fortune. So it's like it's fun for sure, like to just give the money to the lion and then they kind of eat it and then they bless
really
you.
Cool.
Yeah. So then there's definitely that, but then it does get hard sometimes to try to like get the money and like continue to like dance when there's everyone walking up to you and just shoving this in your face.
Maybe to have like some sort of vest inside with pockets. I don't know what kind of shirt you're wearing, but now I'm just in my problem solving phase. Like, how can we make this?
It depends on what color your lion is. Our lion was yellow. We had a second lion as well that was red. So if you had a red lion, you had to have a red shirt on. So that way you kind of blend in a bit more and have like a more uniform color. Ours was a yellow lion, so I wore a yellow button up because I don't own anything yellow. So I tucked my shirt in and just shoved money into my shirt. And I was like, you know what? That kind of worked.
There you go.
So yeah.
Where was this?
This was at a temple in Williamstown, like near here.
Cool.
Yeah, like maybe 15 minutes from my house. Yeah, it was very fun.
Yeah. Was it done for like what sort of celebration was it done for?
So we did a couple different things. We do Moon Festival, Mid-Autumn Festival. There's like a certain holiday that I don't know like the exact like translation necessarily, but it's like Buddha's day, like the day of like Buddha's, I guess, like birth or something like that.
Like Christmas equivalent for Buddhism?
Kind of, yeah. Kind of like that. So then there was that, and then there was another one that's kind of like a Mother's Day, but in Buddhist tradition where like you celebrate mothers, whether or not they have like passed, and there's like certain flowers that you get of certain colors. That way you can kind of like, it kind of distinguishes you from like whether you have a mother that's still alive or a mother that has passed, and it's an appreciation. So it's like a very much more like, it's supposed to still be like a joyful type of day where like you kind of just are there to give appreciation to your moms for what they have done. Either that or it's like a remembrance and you get to reminisce on it.
I like that. Even I almost like that, especially because when I think of a lot of the funeral culture I've seen before, it's often very morose, and like I can respect that, of course, the pain of losing someone you love. But in other cultures where I see it's more of a celebration in a funeral where you're celebrating life and like this is part of the cycle, this person has moved on. There's something beautiful to that too.
Yeah. It's like you kind of remember that day. Like, yes, it definitely, it's a very sad thing for sure. No matter how you celebrate it, whether you celebrate it in, like you said, like a more morose way or like in a happy celebration, it's still sad in its own sense, but you'd rather remember them in a happy way. At least for me, everyone has their own thing for sure. But if you're gonna celebrate someone's funeral, their like appreciation of like the life that they lived, then I would say it's nicer to have like a happier celebration on it, something that you can remember that by.
And it strikes me that as you're saying that, some of the most beautiful songs I've heard have been sad, and that even though they're very sad, there's somehow still a pleasant feeling that can come along with it, which is so weird. Like you don't listen to a sad song and then just, at least for me, oftentimes you don't just get depressed, and just sit there in the pain of depression. Like it hurts with the sadness, but there's a worthwhileness to it.
Yeah. So for me, I've personally never experienced that type of like pain of like losing someone, because the people that I have lost were like very distant, like uncles or aunts that I wasn't necessarily even close to. Either that or I wasn't aware that they even passed away until years later. And then my parents were like, oh yeah, they're gone. I'm like, oh, thanks for telling me like now. I would have liked to, have been there for you to tell me the day of, maybe that
make
way
some calls or go to a funeral or
right,
something.
Exactly. So like to this day, I haven't been to like a funeral. Not like that's like on a bucket list or anything.
Don't worry, I'm sure it'll come eventually. Which is,
but it's like it's just something that's like I know I'm gonna have to experience one day anyways, and
unless you die first.
Exactly. So don't count us. Like,
2022 goals. No, oh my god.
New year, no longer.
New year gone me. All right.
A little off track. But yeah, I haven't experienced that, so like I can't really necessarily relate through song, but I can sympathize when people have lost someone before. Like I can't imagine necessarily what it like they're going through and what they're feeling, what's the thoughts in their mind. But I can to like a certain extent of like being close to people, and I don't want to lose these people in my life. So you like I'm sure you think of all that stuff as well.
Which is that's a I don't want to. Part of me wants to say that's a fucked up part of life, and a part of me just wants to say it's a part of life, and maybe other parts of me want to say other things, but I'll sit here all night going over that list. But the fact that everyone you know dies, like every friend, every hated person, every family member, every child, like they all eventually.
Yep. That was a super scary thought that I had when I was young. I had a like terrible phobia of dying when I was younger. Like I'm talking like maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, and I had that forever.
When you say phobia, like what ways would it manifest itself?
I just thought of it in my head where it was just like one of these days I'm gonna be laying there in my deathbed, and I have all these other people that are here older than me who aren't going to be there. So all the pain that I've already felt, and now I'm inducing that pain on others by also dying. So it's just like I don't know why a 6, 7, 8-year-old is thinking about this, but I did. And it like I kept having these random thoughts. It was like anxiety. Like I had this thought just like roll through my head sometimes, and sometimes it would just get stuck, and I'm just like thinking about it over and over and over. And then I was just like, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. So then eventually years and years went by, and the thoughts kind of like more random. They weren't as frequent, but I would still have anxiety attacks over it, or like I just call it a phobia. I wasn't like necessarily fully like actually scared of death, but like I hated the idea of like passing or going and like feeling like I didn't do enough in my life, or like I don't know who is going to be there at my funeral, who's going to be there at my side. It's people I haven't met yet. So like in my head, I'm fantasizing all these different people that are there, but it's all blurs because I don't know these people yet. So it's just like faceless people at my side or at my funeral, people I don't know, maybe my kids, my wife, whoever it may be. And I don't know these people yet. I haven't met them. So it's like that was like part of that like fed into the anxiety. It was like, well, I got to meet these people one day. So, but that's why I a bit more and unintentionally I came up with like ideas to kind of cope with that, which was like I like thought of theories of like reincarnation and like what happens after you die, because like part of the reason why I was scared, it was like when you die, am I just gonna see like if I close my eyes it's just like just darkness, or like when I fall asleep I just don't wake up? Is that how it feels? So I was scared of that as well. So I was like, well, then what if it's like a fast forward in time after you pass away? And it's just like everything just restarts. Kind of like the Big Bang happens again, and like everything has like a form of reincarnation. So then it's like just this giant cycle. So there's definitely, I have like a ton of those ideas and theories, and we don't have to dive fully into that because I'll be here speaking for like 10 hours straight. But it was just that was the idea that I had in order to kind of cope with it, and unintentionally, that's how Buddhists think, and that's why they're so at peace at all times. Like monks and stuff like that, they sacrifice a ton of different things. They can't be in relationships. They all these like the sexual wants. They can't have wants at all. It's just like they just kind of take whatever comes their way, but then they tackle the situation or whatever it may be with a different perspective of like peace. Like they're just kind of okay with it because it's like fate. It's meant to happen, but they'll get over it. So the idea of death as well, they're okay with that because they know that once they die that they'll pass on, like maybe their soul escapes like their body and then they'll be reincarnated again anyway. So that's why they're just okay with doing whatever it is. It's just they're at peace. So that's kind of what I had to like. I unintentionally came up with that like theory for myself, and I was like, oh, wait, that's how Buddhists think. And then I got more in touch with my Buddhist parts again.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
so you started thinking about that more recently?
Yeah. So I thought about that stuff like maybe like when I was around like 17 and on, and then like once I was like around like 20, 21, I started thinking or like getting more and back into like some Buddhist practice. I don't go to temples now like that, but it's more like just practicing the morals and the ideas of like Buddhist traditions of like dharma and like karma and stuff like that. Do good, get like you receive good back. If you do bad, you're gonna receive bad somewhere along the lines.
Has it changed the way you live at all?
Not necessarily. No, it hasn't like changed, but like I don't think I do things too differently. I just have that thought run through my mind at times whenever I do things. It's just more of like a moral practice. I'm still like far from being like a pure person, but
Enlightened.
yeah. But you know, it's life, so we're just kind of going about it however and just kind of having fun with it.
Would you ever want to be a monk?
When I was a kid, yes, I wanted to be a monk. I told my parents I wanted to be a monk, but just because I loved the garbs that they wear, it was just like, that looks cool.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, and they just seem so
Whoa.
at peace. So, because like, I used to go out to Philly a lot because my parents had a store out there. When I was a kid, after like elementary school, I'd be out there with them. And sometimes monks would visit the store and just kind of like give some like peace offerings and stuff like that. And I always like just stared in fascination that I was like, they have a bald head. And they wear these orange garbs. And I've watched Dragon Ball.
Yeah,
So
I
this
know what
looks
they can do. Yeah.
this guy can Kamehameha, I bet. Like he's gonna throw like some key blasts and like I'm just gonna oh my god. This guy has powers. For sure. I wanna be a monk.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Feels different wearing those robes, man.
Yeah. So that's that was my thought when I was a kid, for sure.
That sort of peacefulness, not wanting anything. That's such a strange concept to me.
Yeah, but they're so content with their life, like without like desires. Like everyone around us nowadays, we're like, oh, I want this, I want that, I want a new car, I want a house, I want all these different things that maybe they were lacking before, or now that they have the money to achieve it or get it, they'll get it. But like monks, they sacrifice those wants and desires, and they're still super content with life.
There's something. Do you ever have the desire to live a sort of aesthetic lifestyle, very bare bones, bare essential? Like, actually, this extends me to another form of question along the same lines. I've seen a lot of people romanticize the idea of living out in the woods, the lone man who lives out in the woods, or living in the zombie apocalypse, right? Something along those lines. Do you have a fantasy along those lines of a lifestyle you'd like to live that's quite different from your current one?
So yeah, I've thought about like a very like village-like life before. Like thinking probably something like Kyoto, Japan, where it's like traditional
Did
village.
you say village? Wait, I thought Kyoto was a city.
Kind of like, yeah, but it's like they have like that look of like kind of like a village. I guess it's not Kyoto specifically, but like almost village-like, where like it's like, oh, the sons, you know, they go out to the woods during the day or something and grab firewood and that type of stuff, and then you know, just that type of traditional life. And then maybe here and there you go a little out further from the village to go to like the more city like area to maybe have like a nice dinner, or like go to get like a drink that you can't normally have, and like maybe you just have water. So like maybe you want like some more special drink. Yeah. Like I don't know. It's just like something more quaint, but like we're so used to like the way we're living here. It's like very modern. Everything is like dependent on like technology. So it's way more bare bone there.
Yeah.
Thinking about it.
And that's a strange contrast that some people still have. And even if they don't literally want to live it, I've seen people who would probably never give up this kind of lifestyle still watch it with fascination. Like they'll watch Alaskan frontier shows. I'm thinking of my dad specifically. And it's like I'm living vicariously through you. And it's weird to notice that despite all these wonderful advancements, air conditioning, transportation, medical advancements, phones, on and on and on, that despite all that, we still maintain a touch with a pretty strong touch of our maybe evolutionary history. What we've adapted to want: the sun gathering the wood, being out in the woods, smelling the fresh air, being in the grass. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why like part of like I at one point I want to make enough money through like getting a job to be able to travel. Like I want to be able to like retire a bit earlier to just travel and like see everything, and then like really just like bask and like be part of the culture that's there. That way you can experience different lifestyles, something that maybe feels more futuristic than what we have here, or something that feels a bit more like primitive than.
I'd love to. Kyoto is such a perfect example of that, because you could have Tokyo, not super, far off, and my understanding of that is the pinnacle of technological advancement, right? The bullet trains going several hundred miles per hour, feeling like nothing. I've heard people go to bars there, and they'll have just robots come out and dance for you. You'll hear of like holographic stars, like famous popular figures that are only holograms. People just edit them and make them up. And then to have that and then just go out in the mountains, live the old samurai-esque lifestyle.
Yeah.
That sounds fucking awesome.
It's just like, it's one, like you see what they have there, and then you're like, I want to experience that, but at the same time, I'm not sure if I could ever get used to it. But I do want to see it, for sure. It's the same thing if I were to say, like, contrast with, like, Kyoto, where it's just like, I don't know if I could fully live that life just because I'm so accustomed to what I have now, but I definitely would want to see, like, if I really like it or not, or, like, to just at least fathom the idea if, like, maybe I could like live that life.
And it's so cool to notice that different parts of you activate when you go to very different environments. Literally, I heard there's a field, and my God, I know so little about this, but the little that I did hear is extremely fascinating in epigenetics, that different genes, different parts of your DNA will start to activate in different environments. So you can really become an extremely different person if you go from living in, let's say, suburbs here to going out to live in Tokyo. And it just makes me wonder, how many different parts of myself don't I know of?
Right.
And like, how cool would it be to get to know them?
Yeah, exactly. Like you kind of like morph into a different person, and then like you kind of realize it for yourself, I would assume, as well. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm a little different here. So like, because you just kind of adapt to a different lifestyle, so you kind of do become like partially a different person, if not like, yeah, I wouldn't say you would completely become a different person, but like, yeah, I would say like it definitely activates a different part of you. There's like, I kind of need to adapt to like how this is. So it brings this part of me out.
Makes me wonder how. What are the extremes within myself? Like, how different could I become? And that makes me think of, do you ever watch Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, of course. If you haven't, you should. God damn it. But the fact that for the Avatar to become a fully formed person, in a sense, he has to go experience all the other elements and kind of become a master of these very different walks of life.
Yeah.
And that after doing that, he then kind of becomes a master of himself, a master of thriving. And that even Iroh, when he was teaching Zuko, someone who's not the Avatar, he's like, even to become better at firebending, to become at least adept to get to know the world of water, of wind, of earth. And it makes me wonder, how true is that for reality, right? Because then I've heard of the Renaissance man, the guy who becomes a painter for a time, then goes to become an architect, then become a farmer, then a warrior, so on and so forth. Is there some key to prosperity that lies in experiencing very different forms of life, I wonder?
Yeah, for sure. I never even like fully thought of Avatar in that way necessarily. Like for like the face value of it, sure. Like he has to go and like all the struggles and the hardships of like learning different elements. But yeah, never fully like thought of it that deep of it. But yeah, you're totally right. He has to. We can definitely apply that to like how we are now. Like we're so used, like, because obviously he's an airbender and he's been used to like that lifestyle already. But then to become like a way better version and a master of himself, and like the only person that can master all of these elements, he has to go through different cultures, traditions, styles, and ideas of like, because they affiliate water with like just going with like the flow, like ebb and flow,
Super
and,
adaptable.
yeah, and very flexible, being like just I don't know how to explain it. It's just kind of like you take shape with it, because like kind of like I think.
Are you thinking of the Bruce Lee quote?
Yeah, exactly.
You
Exactly.
pour it into the cup, it becomes the cup.
You have to be like water.
Perfect. And then wind was very much playful, the nomad, the person who's traveling, not very many worries, a light weight on their back. Then earth, I imagine that's like the very structured parts of society, things that are solid, stable, that last for very long times.
It's like reinforcing yourself, like
Yes.
really just like being like structured up and
The
like,
foundation.
Exactly.
And then fire is just, it's like creation, it's innovation, it's wild, it's crazy. You have to be very careful with it. And it's also battle and violence and all that sort of thing.
Like it can be very aggressive, but you have to learn how to control that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or else you burn your own friends, as he did with Katara.
Yeah.
And it's, dude, that was a fucking deep show. Can we stop talking about that for a second?
It was very good.
Oh my God, yeah. That would be one of the few shows that I've ever seen, or movies for that, or really any storyline, where from start to finish, it was gold. Like, I didn't see any fat in any of their episodes, right? There was never like a filler episode. I didn't get the feel that they put this in there just to extend the series a little longer. And there's something so beautiful to that, to knowing where the climax is and knowing where to end, knowing where your what's it called when an athlete's at their pinnacle, prime, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you only have one prime in any given scenario, and if you know where it is, then you can know when to cut it off. Because if I think of something like a SpongeBob or a million other shows I could name, Game of Thrones, so on and so forth, it seems like too long. You dragged it on too long.
Yeah.
It lost the magic, man.
It's just like it just keeps getting dragged out. It kind of loses its touch with it a bit.
Yes.
But Avatar was like perfect length. Then obviously they had like spin-off shows where it's like a different story now, which I feel like a lot of shows should do, where it's like keep it like relatively short, like tolerable, and then maybe you can like spin off from it, where like at least it keeps its touch a bit more.
Because Korra really was like a different show. I never really got into it, but from what
Me
I
either.
saw, it almost have a little bit of the dragged out feel. But I get what you're saying, because it was very much a new show
Yeah.
when they put it on. Cool.
Dang. Thinking back on it, it's so nostalgic. Like I'm thinking about like the soundtrack of Avatar. I remember I learned that when I first got my hands on a kalimba. I wanted to learn the Avatar's Love.
What
like
the fuck's a kalimba?
The kalimba? It's like this like little wooden wooden rectangle, and it has like a hole in the middle. And it almost acts as if like a piano. And there's two holes in the back of it, where when you hold the holes in the back and you play these metal strips that are down, almost like I guess like how a harp is, but it's like these little metal panels.
Oh, I think I actually have one in the
kind
house.
of pluck it with your thumb.
Yes, I do know what you're talking about now. Yes.
Yeah. And like when you're holding the holes in the back, the sounds like resonate, and it just really echoes out, and it sounds so beautiful. Yeah, it's so soft sounding, and like playing Avatar's Love on there was just the number one song I really wanted to learn. So I did, and I like played it over the mic a couple of times. I'm like at home, like on Discord or something like that. And we're like, what is that?
Dude, if you ever find someone that you would call the love of your life, you have to play that song for them.
Yeah, exactly. Robert.
Yeah. You just have the ring. You get on one knee, propose to them. Oh my God. Or the Agni Kai song, that where Zuko's fighting Azula in the final battle.
Oh yeah.
That was so fucking epic. Dude, that's such a perfect... This is something I've dove into quite a few times. You remember when Azula's having her like midlife crisis, we'll call it, where she doesn't know who to trust. She's getting super paranoid. She cuts off her friends. She's starting to like throw away her most trusted council members. And she sees she's having this peak moment of mental collapse, and she's looking in the mirror, and she sees her mom appear, right? Like the one person who maybe truly loved her for her, this pure, unconditional sort of love. And Azula just thinks she's lying to her. She's like, "No, you think I'm a fucking monster. Like you don't love me." And like, "No, I forget exactly what the mom says, but in short, Azula ends up breaking the mirror. And then after that point, it's just like she's just gone off the deep end. She's fallen off the cliff. And I've seen that in a Pinocchio Have you ever seen Pinocchio?
Mm-mm.
There's a point where one of the characters, they're on something called like a paradise island, and little boys are taken there, and they think it's just this paradise, like a nonstop amusement park, right? And they're playing this just nonstop play, and they start to turn into jackasses. Like literal, they'll start to turn into donkeys. Their laugh will start to change, like, oh, and they'll notice it, and Pinocchio notices it because he starts to become one too, and he becomes horrified.
Mm-hmm.
But one of his friends starts to turn into a jackass, and he looks in the mirror, and he becomes horrified, but he breaks the mirror. And Azula breaks the mirror when she notices, like, I don't know, the horror of what she's becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this weird theme of like you break your ability to reflect back on who you are, to question yourself, to see yourself in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that shit got deep.
Yeah, that definitely can get really deep. It's like in that split second, you're choosing whether or not you want to be able to still reflect on yourself, like literally, literally to reflect on yourself and see who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she just breaks it, you're just like,
damn.
She chose that path.
Oh, and then what is even choice? Because then you could talk about the dad brainwashing her, and his dad before him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in a sense, she did.
Yeah,
She chose.
I've always like when I first watched through it, I always thought like, she'll have a change of heart probably. Just because I feel like when Zuko comes back, Zuko's gonna be there, and like he's gonna have like some sort of like heart to heart with her, and it's just gonna it's gonna pan out, it's gonna work fine. And I watched through him like it's not fine,
Dude. As soon as Iroh said no, she's crazy, we need to stop her.
Yeah. When Iroh says it, it's like I believe everything that Iroh says.
Right, dude. I need to get a tattoo of that, man. I swear to God.
I actually we have a pet bearded dragon at home named Iroh.
Isn't that a lizard of some sort?
Yeah, so a bearded dragon, and so we thought of it because Uncle Iroh is the dragon of the West.
Shit, yeah.
So we're like, oh, now we have this lizard, our dragon. We named him Iroh, and he's the bearded dragon of the East.
Yeah.
Here.
Yes, I love that. Okay. Pretty major gear shift. What have been some of the major changes that you've experienced in your life?
Major changes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's one of them. I don't know if you've because I honestly don't remember the last time we officially talked.
In a minute.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm thinking it's just it was just probably high school was the time.
I think so, yeah.
So then I was pretty chunky back then.
Yeah, you lost a good amount of weight, man.
Yeah,
Look good.
I made a post about it, but it was something. Something within me was just all right, I want something to change. And there's countless times where I was I've been to the gym for a couple months and I didn't see any progress because you have to stick to it. You got to build this habit. You got to really want it. And then stick through to it, and then you'll see progress. But for me, I was just a couple months in, why am I not seeing any progress? Sure, I feel healthier, I feel active, but I don't physically see any differences. I still have this chunk on me and everything. I don't feel like I've built any muscle. It's just what the heck's going on? So then I tried different diets, intermittent fasting and all that stuff. And then at one point, I was just let me try keto.
Mm-hmm.
So I did keto for about 6 months during it was my last year at Rowan.
Mm-hmm.
So I started keto at the beginning of my final semester, so in January, and I pretty much ended it in around August, around August time. So I think I was a little bit on and off. So I think I kind of just called it 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But,
side tangent. What does keto feel like if you get into ketosis?
So keto, a lot of people say that they feel a lot of different things. So keto, for those I don't know, is that you're just cutting out carbs from your diet, essentially. You're limiting yourself to less and less and less carbs at a very drastic pace, where then you have to make your body get used to not intaking carbs and not realizing and recognizing what carbs are. So now your source of energy that is being burnt, or your source of your diet that's being burnt to give you energy, is now changed to something else. And the next thing in line is fat.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of it burning carbs to give you energy, now it's burning fat. So you're just kind of losing weight. by essentially just not eating carbs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people felt the keto flu while entering ketosis, which is just like some people feel a lot of different things. They like maybe they feel like they need to vomit. They feel like they have like a headache. It's kind of like almost like just like cold symptoms in a sense. For me, I took about a week to get into ketosis, like an actual form of like being in keto. It took about a week, and I remember like 3 days into being in keto, I felt like shit. I needed to throw up. I got a headache. So I did experience a bit of like the keto flu. Other people, not at all. Some people don't feel anything. They don't feel that keto flu at all. But for me, yeah, I got like a headache. I did throw up. So I would assume, like, I don't think it's coincidence. I'm pretty sure I just threw up because like my diet changed drastically. So then, yeah, I stuck with it for 6 months, and I told I didn't even know how long I necessarily wanted to do it for. I just wanted to do it for until like I saw like good progress. Then I would start to kind of like quantify it as I went. So I started off on keto around like 220 or 230 pounds. And I was like, let's start off, like set up first like big goal, I guess. Let's try to get to like 200 or something. So that's like 20 to 30 pounds. Like that's a lot, but maybe we can make some micro goals on the way. That way we feel like we're achieving something. And so at first, like the first couple weeks, I just kind of stuck with the diet. It did feel weird at first, and then like literally like 3 weeks in, I lost like 5-10 pounds already, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, well, how does this work? So like I stepped.
Question.
Yeah, I would like measure myself on the scale like every morning, like 1 to 2 weeks, like maybe bi-weekly, I would measure myself on the scale, just to see like the progress of it, and then I would check. I'm like 10 pounds down, another 5 pounds. I was like, holy shit, I'm almost there at 200 already, and it's like it's been a month. So then like a little past that 1 month mark, I was down 20-30 pounds.
Wow.
So I was just like, what?
And how'd you feel throughout that time, aside from the first 2 weeks of iffiness?
So I for one, I felt a whole lot better. Physical appearances, I still didn't. For me, it's harder because I see myself in the mirror way more often than other people see me. So I like didn't necessarily notice it for myself, and my eyes just kind of adapted to the way I looked like each day. And then until one point, my brother, because I think he was working at the time too, so like he would be out and then like come back, out, back in, and it's just like he doesn't see me too often, like as much as I see myself. So then at one point he was like, "You're looking thinner," and I was just like, "I am." And so then that boosted my like motivation to keep going again. And then his girlfriend, well, fiance now, but girlfriend at the time, was like, "Yeah, Ben, you're looking like a lot thinner." And then like I was like, that's boosting my confidence a lot. So then I kept going and going and going. So like I would say I mixed up the statistics a bit. I lost about 10 pounds a month. So it was like the first month was 10, second month was 20, third month was 30. So like halfway through my entire journey, I lost 200 pounds, or not 200 pounds.
Oh my God.
Now I'm a stick.
And then I died.
So I'm down to 200 pounds. And then I was like, I may as well just keep going. Like at this point, I've really already built this habit. But like, man, do I want like some ramen right now.
Bread.
Or bread. So like at some points I was like, like you're not supposed to necessarily have those cravings. Those are kind of supposed to like die down a bit, especially for sweets. But man, like being in an Asian household and not being able to have rice.
Oh my God.
I know, it's like right there. I'm just like,
you have SEAL level discipline.
Yeah. I'm just so used to that side dish with everything. So now I just have to eat the entree without the rice, and then it's just like, damn it. Fuck.
Parents just looking at you, you've lost your Asian card.
Shame on you. No, so like, yeah, I couldn't have ramen. I couldn't have like potatoes. I couldn't, because like anything starchy you couldn't have. So no rice either. No bread, obviously. So I would say 4 out of those 6 months, I was cooking burgers like nonstop. Like,
did you get a tiny grill or something?
So I would just kind of pan sear them or pan fry them.
Nice.
Pan grill.
So sounds like you've been a lot of carnivore diet.
Yeah, very, very much like just meat.
Cool.
Meat and like, okay, so I would normally eat about 2 to 3 meals a day before keto diet. When I was on keto, it got worse and worse of how many meals I ate a day. It went from like regular 2 to 3 to like strictly 2 to only 1. And I would actually feel full after that, like the whole
Why
day.
do you say worse?
And worse in the sense like it probably definitely was not healthy to have only 1 meal a day, but man, I wanted progress. So so it was working and I felt full, but like my stomach definitely shrunk. Like I was like so used to be able to eat like so much more food. I was like, oh, I want this entree, this side with this drink, and maybe some dessert afterwards. Where I was just like, now I was like, well, I only just had appetizer, and I'm like,
you're eating those like French level dishes with like 1 slice of meat, a couple grains of rice, and a bean.
I'm kind of hitting that wall already. So like maybe if I drink some water, I'll be full.
Well, half a cup of water.
It's like
so no more buffets.
Yeah, exactly. So we definitely didn't do buffets as much, but we did do Korean barbecue.
Ooh,
you can eat Korean barbecue.
I keep hearing the fucking legends of Korean barbecue.
Have you not had it yet?
Actually, yes, I have once. It's fucking awesome. I've had equivalents at Centaura's house, but not the official thing. I need to have it more.
Oh my god.
I know, right?
I'll need to let you know because like sometimes our Discord, we have like a community, and our Discord, we're like, we need to hang out. And like a lot of times it will be like just like a little fun like active hangout, or like we'll actually go out to eat somewhere. And more often than not, Korean barbecue or like hot pot is like an idea.
Hot pot's my fucking favorite, dude.
It's like around like $30 per person. 30, well, flat, probably around 30, and then like tax and tip and everything.
Insane amounts of food.
But yeah, it's all you can eat. So they'll like you can just keep asking for like pork belly, like Korean bulgogi, all this stuff. It's so good.
Dude, I love that. I think you just got a little accent when you said that for a second. That was cool.
I get like
no, apologize. That was awesome.
I do an Aussie accent at home sometimes with my brother, just randomly. Like I'll just talk like this, like an Aussie,
pretty good.
Like an Aussie. And then there was one time that it just kind of, because I think I told myself if I ever wanted an accent, I would want an Aussie accent. It's like Australian accents are so cool. It's so so sexy.
Yes, the gritty man out in the outback, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh crikey!
Crikey!
Like, talk more, please.
This is a knife, yeah.
But yeah, so there was one time I went out to go buy something, and it was at Sam's Club, and now they check your receipt at the door. So they checked my receipt at the door, like, hey, how are you doing today? I was like, oh, I'm pretty good. How are you? And I was like, it like came out naturally. I was like, oh my god. So in my head, and this was during like the peak of pandemic. So like I had my mask, everything, and then she like did a double take. She's like, clearly you look Asian, but
and we're in America,
but you have an Australian accent.
Did you keep it up?
I did.
I'm
so
happy.
in my head, I was like, "You're Australian now."
Dude, that's a perk. If you move somewhere else, you could just start a whole new accent.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like, oh, you have a not quite native sounding accent, but it's kind of there.
For me, it's strange. One of the ones I know I can confidently do is Dracula.
Oh, okay.
Like, this is how he talks, and now we're doing the podcast.
So I've dabbled a lot with like accents, and I don't know if like I knew that. Did I do impressions for you in high school ever?
Not that I remember, although as I look back, I recognize my memory of high school is not very good.
Right.
Smoking a lot of weed will do that.
Yeah, so I've dabbled a lot with like impressions, and I've tried to pass off as if I were that character's voice actor. So like there would be times where like a new person would meet me and then they would be like, oh, so like what do you do? Like I was like, oh, I play games, like here and there. I like run this Discord. I do like voice impressions and stuff like that. And they're like, "Oh, really? What impressions do you do?" I was like, "Oh, I do like Marge Simpson, Carl Weezer, all that stuff." And they're like, "Oh, really? Can you sample it for me?" I'm like, "Sure." And I'm like, "You want Marge Simpson?" Marge Simpson. And then they're like, "Whoa, that's really good." I was like, "Yeah, because I voiced Marge Simpson." They're like, "Really?"
Dude.
And I was like, I feel bad because I didn't want to like actually make them think that stuff. Like
how deep am I going to go on this?
Yeah.
This
So
fiction?
with some people, I'll take it deeper. I'm like, yeah, I am. But then with some other people, I'm just like, no, sorry, I'm not. But I enjoy doing the impression a lot because
Nice.
like,
Ooh, pardon me for 1 second. I'm going to adjust the camera with new lighting. Wait,
Carl Weezer, Jimmy's mom. Yeah, it's just like the slow way he talks.
these are going to be when I'm making little stories to intro to this. It's just going to be impression after impression.
Yeah. Jimmy's mom.
Dude, have you ever thought of doing an open mic?
Open mic?
Like a comedy open mic?
I've not.
I imagine if you did that and you just did a list of impressions for like 5 minutes or something, I imagine you'd kill.
Probably, maybe. I just feel like because I've seen so many like stand-ups before where like it's like I don't know. It seems like a lot of pressure with like being able to like almost improv on the spot. Like where like say something happens with like an audience member or something like that, and you're able to like recall a joke. It's just like see how quick wit you are. I just feel like I'm not quick wit enough for it. But I don't know.
If you're doing impression work, that's a whole other fucking ball game.
Exactly.
You'll see masters of that. Like I don't know if you're a fan of Andrew Schultz.
I've seen his videos. Yeah.
He's someone who can tear into a crowd, and he'll do an entire special of just crowd work. Like I'm here for an hour, and I'm doing nothing but burning people in the crowd.
Yeah. It's funny. I've seen a lot of his stuff.
But I'm telling you, man, if you just planned out a little set of saying funny shit, it's one of the most wonderful highs you can get. You just stand in front of people and just hear a crowd of folks laughing.
Yeah. You know, it happens.
It's a good time.
It happens a lot on Discord because most of the times we're playing like Valorant or like Apex or something like that. So it's just like in like Valorant talk, we'll just be like, "How the fuck did you not see them in the corner, you dumbass?" And it's just like Carl would never say that.
This is Carl, all grown up, you know?
Yeah, he sounds exactly the same.
All right. So going back to the big changes in your life.
Right.
So we have keto. We have this, I assume you found energy levels, fitness levels, slim look.
Yeah. So to kind of like wrap up like the keto part of it, so a total of 6 months and down 40 pounds.
Wow.
So I think I currently weigh around like 180 to 185, up and down. Like I'm the ladder of like up and down of 185.
And I'm always curious, what kind of exercises do you do?
So I got into fitness during the last month of my keto. Other than that, I didn't really do too much fitness, but I do the splits of push-pull leg. I did those.
Oh, you and Robert, eh?
Yeah.
On the push-pull, yeah.
Yeah. Except Robert didn't really work out with us too often. Like he's a lone wolf kind of guy.
I feel that.
So he definitely does a lot better with like his workouts like when he's alone. Excuse me. But yeah, so we followed this one regimen. Like it was like an Excel spreadsheet of like your compound workouts, like benching and like overhead presses, all that stuff for each like section. And then you had all these like accessories and assisted workouts. But then at one point it was just like, damn, it just feels like the same thing over and over. We need to add some like more spice to this. We gotta like stray from some of these things at one point to like feel a bit more
like I want to do this. Yeah.
But when I went into working out, I never had the idea of like getting like super big, like bulging muscles or anything. I'm just like I just kind of wanted to be like slender, like kind of like slim fit.
Like the model fit.
Yeah, it's like slim fit where like you can like flex and show some muscles still, but like I'm not trying to be
bodybuilder.
Like, yeah, exactly. I don't know, I guess like volleyball fit type deal where
It's
like,
a good kind of fit where you're like running around a lot, agile, coordinated.
Yeah, so I love volleyball. But I got into tennis.
Oh, fuck yeah. Oh, I think Robert was saying he got into that as well. Where you're just doing like suicides constantly throughout.
Yeah, it's definitely that. It's just back and forth, back and forth. You're just chasing after this ball and just smacking the shit out of it.
Yes.
Like, that's very fun.
Yeah, especially when it gets your reflexes to like ninja level.
Yeah, so I think I've only been playing tennis now for like 2.5 months, but it's a lot of fun. It's like I've gotten a lot of progress since the beginning. Like my hand-eye still kind of shit, but it's way better now, and like I feel like way more fluent with it. At first, like my form was terrible. I think I like threw out my shoulder at one point too, just because I tried to smack the ball and it just like popped my shoulder. I was like, all right, well, I'm out for a week. So there was that. But yeah, for like, I guess back to like fitness, I think at one point I tried to like cater my workouts to be more relating to either tennis or volleyball. And then I started like getting mixed up between, because I'm like, well, one works out like a lot more of the bottom half and the other one works out like a decent upper half. Whereas it's like, so now what do I really want? So I just kind of just did like kind of like a mix of both.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. If you do that, fuck yeah. In a sense, sorry about that. If you do that in a way where you just kind of do it when I feel like doing it, today I just feel like doing volleyball. Fuck yeah, let's go get some volleyball. Today I feel like doing tennis. I found that takes you really far.
Yeah.
As opposed to just having and this might be person to person, in fact, probably is, very structured. Like today I must do volleyball in almost a obsessive compulsive way. Not necessarily in a disorder fashion, but like I like the habit and the very structured to get this result with my body. But man, I'm a huge preacher of this, to make your workouts play, large in part. Because every now and then it might just be grind. Like I'm just fucking got to get those reps in sort of thing. But if you do like 80-90% is fun play, that can last you so long.
Yeah, it's definitely like, it's very much a mindset of how you want to go about it. You could be doing literally the same exact thing, but like your mindset, if like you're just putting yourself in a certain situation, it feels a lot different. For me, when I'm working out, I'm listening to anime music.
Nice.
So
always fight scenes.
Yeah. Have you watched? Do you watch Demon Slayer? Dang.
Heard a lot about it though.
But there's a song or like a soundtrack that's playing during like one of the most intense fights that there was in the newest season. I won't really say anything, but the soundtrack that they have for it is like super intense, super hype. So I'm listening to that soundtrack as I'm working out, and it's just this song. It's like 3 minutes. I have it on a loop.
Yes.
So and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I have to get strong to be able to help this guy out. You know, like, so I have to push through this set. I have to get one more rep in. So then, like, I put myself in that mindset where, like, that now it just seems way more fun than just, like, pushing a set. And I'm just like, ouch. Like,
for why? This kind of vague, emotionless reason, like, I guess be fit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now I'm preparing for battle to help my brethren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm putting, like, I need to go to war.
Yes.
So I put myself in that position where it's like, now it feels like a lot better to do it.
Oh my God, dude. I've heard of Joe Rogan was in some workout contest with his friends, and he was on an elliptical, and he just played on a loop a John Wick scene where he's in a fight scene.
Interesting.
Yeah, right? Because it's like, yes, war.
Yeah.
War.
It's very interesting to like hear what people listen to when they do work out, because I hear from Robert a lot of the times too. A lot of people will like the basic idea of like, oh, I need like super pump up songs, something that just makes me like just like loud and just like gets me through it. But then other times other people can listen to like things that aren't like as of like of that caliber of like a pump up. From Robert's perspective, I remember he told me he used to listen to motivational speeches. Yeah. Just like a person talking.
There you go.
So like it's not even music, it's nothing like that same pump anymore, but it's like someone talking about like maybe like a rags to riches or like, you know, like survive type of like motivation, like push through this.
Yeah, man.
But it's like maybe there's no like backtrack to it, like no soundtrack or anything. It's just this person talking, like this monologue, and he's like pushing through his sets from just a person talking like that. So like I just always thought it was like interesting, like what gets them pumped up.
And if you could put a beat behind that, that might be extra motivational. There's this channel called Meaning Wave on YouTube, and the guy does essentially that. He'll play motivational like words of wisdom, shit like that, but he'll put little lo-fi equivalent beats behind it, and it gives it much more of a kick. You can listen to it much more in the background, and it's much more enjoyable to listen to. Yeah, man. So what kind of gets you Now, okay, here's a fun one. What movie scene can you think of that's gotten you really emotional? Not necessarily pumped up. If you say pumped up, that's fine. But really a strong emotion when you watch this.
Ooh, okay. The first one that comes to mind, and it's because when I saw this scene, I ugly cried.
Yes.
I
Beautiful.
like sobbed and like bawled my eyes out.
It was the movie Coco.
It was Dora. No. It was The Quiet Place. Have you seen Quiet Place? No, really. It's John Krasinski, the guy who plays Jim in The Office. It's like this entire movie based around a like kind of like a post-apocalyptic world where there's creatures scouring around this like the earth, and they are very sound sensitive. So any sound that they hear at all, they like kind of go to that and just cause
Like Last of Us vibes.
yeah, like destruction. Like they have these like cleaver like hands that they like crawl on, and they have this like demogorgon like mouth from like Stranger Things. But they open up their ears to be able to hear more, but they're blind. They don't see you, but if they hear you, they can almost like pinpoint know where you are. That's like how good their hearing is. So the movie, I forget the statistic of it, but there are very, very minimal lines in that movie because everything is done through sign language. And
Hopefully they have subtitles on the screen. Okay.
Yeah, they subtitle the sign language, but it's like such a beautiful like movie that it's like you're so used to being able to like hear all this different dialogue, but now you're getting so much story and emotion through like just expressions and sign language. And there's like should I
Oh, spoiler alert! Fuck yeah.
Okay, spoiler alert. The dad, like him.
Oh wait, can you tell me the build up too?
Yeah. So there's the daughter was already deaf. So she has like kind of like a hearing aid, and the dad has always been working on like creating a better hearing aid where like maybe she can like hear again. But like she's at first like super discouraged, like you keep trying, but like it's not gonna work. Why do you think this one's gonna work this time? And then he was just like, well, I'm not gonna give up on it, like I'm gonna try and get this to work for you. And
wait, the daughter was trying to discourage, well, not try, but
like she was discouraged that it just never worked. So like she was like, why are you even trying anymore? So she like in a sense like kind of like built up this thought that like the father doesn't like listen to her and doesn't like care for like how she feels and thinks about it, to a point where like she thinks that like he doesn't love her. Like she created that like illusion and that thought in her mind
because he's trying to make hearing aids for her.
It's more so because also okay, I guess I'll backtrack a little bit more. There's 3 total kids in the movie. A daughter, a son, and there was another like younger son who died in the very beginning of the movie because the daughter had given him this little toy rocket that he really wanted. And this was already in a post-apocalyptic world, but she didn't think about taking the batteries out of it. The mom already took the batteries out because they no noise, can't have noise. So she gave her little brother this toy, but then he really wanted the batteries, so he like kind of grabbed the batteries last second without anyone seeing and put it in, and he didn't like turn it on or anything. But at one point they're on like these railroad tracks, and he's like playing with it, and then he presses a button, and like this rocket's now playing these like yeah, exactly. And then they all turn around and they're just like
Run.
But yeah, not even that, but like now the father dropped everything, because like once you already make a sound, that thing is gonna come, so you may as well.
Are there a bunch of them?
There could be. Yeah, they don't know. I don't think there's like a specific amount of like they never.
I didn't know if it was like one beast that lurks or if it's a bunch and you'll get
you can kill these things. It's just like there's a ton of them. You don't know how many there are. I think it like they came from like a meteor or something like that. So they're very like alien creatures. And so it goes off and he's like sprinting to try and grab his son now, who's just standing there playing with the toy, and like it's just flashing back between the father running toward him and like the son there, and then it's also showing like a camera angle of something in the woods now moving, and then the last second before he could grab his son, the thing just comes and snatches the son and like slices him in half. And so then he just like stood there, and like because he can't, like he doesn't want to die either, he like stopped in his tracks after like the son got like snatched, and he realized that his son just died in front of his eyes. He just stopped in his tracks from his like sprint, and he's just like, and it's just like quiet, and it's just like, holy shit, the amount of like that you have to hold back from that. But then it's like it's very based around like family in this movie, and it's just like sticking together and being strong. So then like later on in the movie with like how now like that daughter blames herself for not, or for giving that rocket now to him. So she like blames herself a lot that her little brother's dead. I was like, fuck. So like she takes a lot of that anger out at times and projects it onto her father as well. So that's why a lot of the time she thinks that her father doesn't love her, because of like the fuck up that she had in the very beginning of the movie. So then at one point, there was a lot that happened in like the farm that they lived at, and like shit went down, and like now their farmhouse is like surrounded by like 2 or 3 of these things, and they're trying to like just survive. And at one point, the father sees his 2 kids like being pinned down, like they're in like a truck, and this thing is trying to like kill them, and like it's slicing up the truck. It didn't hit them or anything, but the father was just like well, there's only one way for me to save my kids. And so like that he lets out this, he like drops everything. He dropped the shovel that he had in his hand that he's gonna fight this thing. He just drops the shovel. It hears the shovel drop, so it stops slicing the truck. And then now he wants to try and lure this like thing away, but instead he kind of just stands there. But before that, he looks at his daughter and he signs to her like, I've always cared for you, I've always loved you, like don't ever think that I never cared, and stuff like that. And he drops the shovel, and then he lets out this like loud scream to get this thing to like come to him, and it kills him. And then the truck kind of just like,
and then it goes back and kills the kids in the truck. No.
Yep. And then
Life
the truck
sucks, and then you die.
The truck just slowly like kind of rears like a little downhill away from like the thing that creature's like view. But like that's not the end of the movie, but like that scene itself was so powerful and like emotional that like every time I watch it, I cry. It's just like, it's just such a strong scene in the movie where like they base it around like not being able to talk at all, and then here he is letting out this like giant scream, sacrificing himself for his kids. I'm like, holy shit. Great movie.
Sounds like it.
Very good movie. Like probably in my top 3 or top 5 movies for me of all time.
What would be another top 3 movie?
Oh, Dark Knight. Love the Dark Knight.
Wait, is that the one with Joker?
Yeah, so that's the Christian Bale Batman.
Are we talking about all 3 of them, or?
I guess more so the Dark Knight in specific. I loved all 3 movies, but for some like the Dark Knight itself was
Ben Affleck ain't got shit.
It's very different Batmans, but I didn't necessarily enjoy that Batman necessarily either. It's like he definitely played into a much more gadget based and like
superhero-y.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Just when you implement, I don't know, I've never been that big on Superman. So like him being into the movie too with like Justice League, I was like,
Nah, I feel like they missed some key component. But yeah, dude, the Joker Batman.
very good.
Yes.
Very good. Because Heath Ledger like changed it up, like how Jokers were ever played, and like he'll always be famed to be like the best Joker. There has been like really good Jokers out there for sure.
Jack Nicholson is a good one, but Heath Ledger's
Joker,
that might be better than Joaquin Phoenix's Joker.
Yeah,
I might go that far.
Joaquin Phoenix's Joker played like in a different part of it as well, but like it's like because you get to see so much more of like the behind the scenes of like what Joker went
created
through.
It.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a very different type of Joker, right?
Yeah,
it's almost a whole different character when you compare the 2 movies.
Yeah,
but oh my god, watching that transformation for Joaquin Phoenix, and that's one of the my favorite parts of that movie is that it shows you how like that could be you.
Yeah.
or like anybody you know.
You guys painted him to be this person, and you like treated him like shit to a point where like, nah, you've created this guy now, and now he's gonna be this like leader of people who have been oppressed and felt this way now.
What do you think about his quote at the end of the movie? Spoiler alert, big spoiler alert, where he shoots the guy in the show and he says, "You get what you fucking deserve." What do you think about that quote?
Ooh, because it's like he plays it off as a joke, and like he says it in a setup of like a joke, right? Beforehand, he's like, "What do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that treats him like trash?" I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the exact quote. You get what you fucking deserve. So it's like, it's almost like a Just Desserts type of feel, where it's like you kind of like you invited him onto the show to now like make more of a joke out of him, like because he's like, I don't know, they just kind of pinned him into a corner, and so there's only like one way for him to come out of this now.
Yeah, it's so weird that they painted him as like, it was almost like they brought him on a hero's journey, like while he's going through, after he kills his fucking mom and he basks in the sunlight. I got flashbacks of Simba being held up to the rising sun, right? Like it's the birth of the hero, you know, the rising sun. It's a very common mythological theme. And then you can see him, he's standing on top of the car, almost like a Jesus. He spreads his arms to the people as he smiles. It's like, whoa. The fact that he could be a hero to anybody is a very weird part of human nature.
Yep.
That he's not an obvious total villain.
Yeah. And like it can kind of almost be like recalled to the whole like Avatar like Azula thing, like when he finally got dressed up and it was the day for him to go onto that show. It was like I think Murray's show.
Murray, yeah.
Murray. So he got dressed up on the show, and like he's just in what is the word? Kind of accepting it now. So he just see him like dance all crazily, hopping down the stairs.
And it's this. Not even just acceptance, although it's definitely a part, but it's I'm embracing it.
Yeah,
I love this now in some weird fucked up way.
So he's just embracing that like that part of him now, and it's just like whatever happens happens, and I'm just gonna like no longer let people step all over me. I'm just gonna take it my way, and he did exactly that.
Yeah.
So like it's a very different part of like Joker, whereas like when you see in the other movies where like he's already a villain, you know, you're rooting for Batman and whatnot to like catch this guy. But
Yeah, I think it was go Heath Ledger. That wasn't the vibe you got.
Yeah, but then you're thinking like, oh wow, like he played a very genius like Joker, like he played out Batman, like he had Batman like kind of he was always a step behind in a sense. But then with this Joker, it's like a different type of feel where it's like,
I'm just an everyday person. I'm not a criminal mastermind.
yeah, but you made me out to be one.
Yeah.
And, like, now I am. So like it's I don't know. It's crazy because like you can reflect on like how it is like IRL for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's like
what to do about when you see someone who's panhandling on the side of the street, right? It's like how far away is their life from the Joker's life?
right.
And I heard someone saying there's a lot of truth to this. It's like, okay, you could see that person and get this, you know, this spark of do-gooder feeling, and you take them into your house and, you know, you try to help them out of their shitty situation. But he's like, that's probably not going to help that person. It's probably just going to fuck up your life a lot, fuck up their life maybe even more in a strange way. You're giving them maybe more access to money and things along those lines, which isn't always a great thing if they just go out and buy drugs with it immediately. And you're just stuck with this, what do I do? Because it stabs me when I see someone like in that situation.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it's like it's another like mindset type of thing. Like when you're going about it to try and help someone, you can't like think of it as like, oh, maybe they'll do wrong, like they'll do bad with it. Maybe you gotta just like you give it to them for its face value and hope they do good with it. Hope that they get better with whatever the situation it was. I've gone out to Philly many times where like on the streets there's just people holding up signs for money and stuff like that. If I have some spare like couple like dollars, I'll just give it to them.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're saving it up for like whatever else it is, I've done now like the part that I wanted to do, which was the goodness of my heart to help them. It is now on them if they are going to use that to help themselves or for the worse, and which I'm thinking, and in the end of it, they'll feel that guilt upon themselves, like, I probably should have used that for something better.
And that gets really weird, man. I heard from Russell Brand, because he used to be a heroin addict and crack and like really deep shit. And when he went to a rehab center, one of the first things the nurses told him was, good job finding a way to survive. Boom. And then it's like, okay, if you give that person money, they'll just use it to buy drugs or something. It's like, well, what exactly is a drug in that situation? It could be the medicine that's keeping that person alive. Like, it could be the only reason they're not killing themselves. Like, it could be that real.
Yeah.
And then maybe you give them that money to that. They use a little heroin that keeps them alive a little longer. And then maybe when they get to live longer, something will happen that can help them get out of that situation. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's so hard to try and like map it out for yourself. So that's why, like, for me, everything, like, I just like I hope it just does good for you.
Yeah.
Like, I hope you feel like, I hope whatever it is that you needed, like, this will help you get better in a sense. Whatever it is.
And I hope, if anything, they get a touch, like they get a feeling that people actually care about them. As opposed to the Joker where everyone just steps over me and treats me like shit.
Right.
Like, just know that there are people out there who actually want you to do well. They do. And maybe they don't want to devote all their life to that. And maybe there's something wrong about that. That you're kind of knowing that's going on and, in a sense, just letting it go on. It's a very strange moral question. I'm not exactly sure what to do about it. But yeah, I kind of like the path you've set so far. That's what I've done a lot myself. Just help in a little way if I can in the moment, and then just like salute and move on your way, right? Like,
It's like, I feel like a lot of good deeds nowadays are like, they go a little bit underappreciated, but at the same time, they outweigh the bad in a lot of ways as well. Where, like, say some person could have like received like shit for like from 5 different people, but then there was that one good person that came along and like helped them a little bit. It's like that part of like, really, they make you think like, oh, not all of humanity is like lost. So then that kind of keeps them going still, even though they received shit from like the past 5, like 10 people or something like that. That one person has now like enough encouragement to like probably keep going. So like, okay, I don't mind getting shit from 5 to 10 more people if
people like that exist.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's another person bound to come along.
And what if I could find a whole community of people like that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, it gets pretty deep with that.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, so other major changes in your life, I'm curious.
Other major changes. I mean, I feel like nothing too crazy, nothing too out of the way as like maybe some other people, because like obviously I'm still job hunting, so there hasn't been that change yet, although I did just go through an interview. Hopefully that went well. But like, other than that, like, yeah, like I went through this same thing a lot of people did after like high school, is just either go to college or just try and find a job, whether or not they went to college. So it's just, there was that. Other than that, just been trying to keep in touch with like my social circles of like Robert and like just my family and stuff. And still continuing to just do something with my degree in order to now like find that next chapter of my life. Like, I feel like I'm reaching like potentially like an end of like one chapter, trying to open up another one, and that opens up like so many different ideas and like side stories that are like bound to happen now. But just waiting on the closing part of this chapter in order to get to that point.
It's kind of wild to notice how many lifetimes you live in one life.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure. I think of it like in a very much of like a book form, and like you don't have to read it in any specific order either. It's just like different chapters are just different parts of my life that, sure, if you want to read the first chapter to see like how I got to this point, sure, but you don't necessarily need to read that part in order to understand what's going on in this current chapter of it.
Yeah, fuck yeah. And it's a cool thing you said that it's nothing major crazy has stuck out to me when I look back on my life, but to notice that some of the biggest things that impact someone's life are the million little things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That go through the daily. Now I'm kind of, I want to get to like the heart of what you care about, which just kind of sounds a little silly and very vague. But I don't know. I kind of want to know, like, what do you love? What do you hate? What are you really afraid of? What really excites you? Things like that.
So I love being around a lot more people as opposed to like in high school. I felt like I was much more introverted, and I've gone and like, I've like kind of broke out of that shell. And I would say I'm definitely more an extroverted introvert now, where it's just like I love going out, being with friends, but sometimes I also do just love being at home and just like being by myself. But more often than not, I'd rather be out.
Got you.
So more often than not, I'd love to go out as long as like it's like planned out and everything. Other than that, if nothing's planned out, I'm gonna sit at home, listen to music, and probably just like play some games, continue to job hunt, and just like talk to people over Discord. And that's like been my routine. But so I want to surround myself with more people, positive people for sure, and then.
What does that mean to you? What does a positive person look like?
Positive person. So like someone that like doesn't like no like toxicity in that sense of like where they're always talking so down on themselves. Like sure, it's inevitable. People are going to think that way of themselves. But then now you have like I want to have like a group of people around where like is like that support group almost where like there's sometimes people feel like they don't have anyone to lean on to like talk about their problems and like vent it out. The other people just kind of bottle it up, and at one point they'll just explode and hate like or say something that they didn't mean to someone that they do truly care about or something like that. And I wouldn't want that for anyone. So just trying to be part of this like positive group, like one out of like however many people there are, be part of this like positive group of people where like whether or not I'm going through something, it's something that I can also deal with by myself in a sense, but I know I can also lean to you to talk about and vent. And while I don't look for any advice, I just have someone to at least like talk it out to where like that way I don't have to bottle it up because like you may not experience the same things that I'm experiencing, but at least you're a shoulder for me to lean on or like a ear that'll listen. So definitely don't want like people to feel left out. So I want to like have that feel for everyone, and I want to be that person for people. And so like cutting out the like toxicity as well. This is like people who just are there to constantly bring others down and like talk shit down on people. We have too much of that already with like a ton of different like political wars that are going on. So like why add more like fuel to the flame when you can try and be, you know, you can be, I guess like being that like good person or positive person is like out of the norm now. So like it's harder to find those good people. So like when you find them, like, you know, keep them close. And I'm trying to like put myself out there more to those people. That like I am someone that you can talk to about whatever you want.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. And that makes me wonder, is that idea of, you said something about people not being as positive en masse nowadays, people being maybe more taking joy from others' suffering, where I kind of like to bring people down. I got a little sadistic kick out of it. Or I like to shit talk things, this, that, and the other. I wonder if that's just more popular in the internet realm and it can seem more popular en masse, or if it truly has become more popular en masse.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, it just kind of seems that way, whether or not like it's like true or not, whether it's like there's actually less of like positive people. It's just kind of sort of felt like it morphed that way. So like if I start to kind of feel that way, then I'm gonna still try and do something about it. But all of that kind of stems from like at one point I did kind of feel alone. This is the like the dark part of like college that I was in. When I went to Rowan, I didn't have like the close or like group of friends that I was like so used to. Like in high school, we kind of just like knew everyone. I was like very much like middle ground of like I didn't like fuck with anyone, but at the same time like I kind of stuck to a very small group of people, like a clique of mine. Like my closest friends at the time were like Robert and Christian, and we just like talked about like everything together. But we never like messed with other people. We never had beef with other people. We never
That's
talked
such a funny concept because me neither in my group.
yeah, we never like had beef with people. We didn't talk down on anyone. We're just like, if you knew us, you knew that we were just like chill people. So
Wait,
like,
that's not entirely true. Dal had some beef, but not as a group. Anyway, sorry.
but yeah, it was just like we didn't want to like start anything. There was no point in starting anything. I have too much like going on in my own life right now. Why am I gonna add more to it? So then when I went to Rowan, I was just like, damn, it's like a completely different like environment now. The people that I was so used to seeing like 7:25 in the morning to 1:59 in the afternoon, and you know, leaving on the buses, people driving home, walking home. It's like all of that is like different now. College life is very much different.
Like thrown into a desert kind of.
Yeah, almost. It's like, what the hell? Who? Everyone here is like gonna just trying to get through classes and go home, or go back to their dorm, or go back to their frat houses and just like party. So like, no one wants to necessarily like socialize with another random person anymore. I'm just like, damn, that sucks. So I wanted to find like a group of people to like just like talk to. That way it doesn't feel like such a dread going to classes every day where like I have to like listen to like hours and hours of lectures and do quizzes and exams. Like I want to have like at least some sort of social aspect rather than just being alone with my problems. So then like I couldn't find that for like the first like year, for the whole first year. So it was very like darker time, just not being able to like really talk to anyone. And I was like, for the first time ever going through coding classes, so I was just like, this is hard as shit. The fuck is this? Because there's other people who had coding classes in high school, and so they came in with prior knowledge, while like our high school didn't offer coding. Our closest thing was probably CAD, which was the just graphic design. Which was nothing at all close
like
to coding. Just not close at all to coding. And so I couldn't find that group. And then the first year, I also failed 2 classes. And like I said, like earlier, I was like typically always like a studious type of kid, in a sense that high school was easy and I didn't have to do anything to get by. So I was like, I took the same idea with college. I thought I was like, oh, maybe I don't have to do that much. But I did like kind of minimal work and I didn't get by. And I was like, well, fuck.
Shit, yeah.
And I was like, damn, my first year of college and I failed 2 classes. Like, am I going to be like falling behind and everything now? And I was just like, oh man, my parents are going to be like super pissed. Like, I'm going to like, I disappointed people. I have no one to talk about this to and stuff like that. So I was like super in my own shell with all of this stuff. And like everything was bottling up and I had all this pressure to perform well from my parents. And like, I kind of like made up this like illusionary like expectation of like what society expects, and I didn't fit into that. And I was just like, well, I'm like underperforming in every aspect possible. So then I was like super hard on myself, and with all these other things, like school was definitely a factor of like a dark time. Like arguments and different pressure between my parents and me was like another thing, to a point where like I like isolated myself for a while and just like kind of closed off and like didn't talk about my problems to anyone. Then like at one point I didn't explode on anyone or anything, but I didn't want to feel those things anymore. So I attempted suicide at one point in my life. I tried to OD. And it didn't work, obviously.
Thank God, yeah.
I'm here. I tried to OD, and the crazy thing is like, when I was younger until now, I was always prone to like stomach viruses. So like I always had like stomach problems and stuff like that. I'm good with that now, but like going through all of that before, like my parents knew like if I ate something, like my stomach was like kind of weaker then. So then at one time, at that point where I did try to just like take all these different pills, whatever the fuck it was, I just dumped it into my mouth. And then I laid in bed hoping I wouldn't wake up. And at one point I woke up and I was like, weird. Okay. And I'm here. And I also feel like absolute shit because whatever I took is now like destroying my body. So I needed to throw up. I had a huge headache, migraine, everything was hurting. And I was like, maybe I'm still gonna die. Who knows? But like, the initial plan failed. Thankfully, because I have like way more of like an appreciation for like me being here now and the people around me. But I just I played it off to them, to my parents and my brother at the time, as if I just had a stomach virus. And like, while I was so scared, when I was talking about earlier, like being scared of dying and stuff like that, I at that point was like ready to just let go. And I don't know what overcame me to just like say like, yeah, fuck it, like I'm ready to leave and just leave all the problems behind, which would have just caused way more problems in the long run. But here I am. Thankfully. So that was like the darker part of my life that I'm so glad I overcame. The next year of school went by so much better. Like I found a group of like people that I really fit into, and like I made time to like really be part of this group too. It was a Vietnamese student association. And so I like not only was like a bigger group of people, but people that I could relate to as well. And then I got super active with that club. And then at the very last year of my university, I became the president of the club too.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, so that was fun.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? Why didn't you continue down that dark road, do you think?
It was kind of just like an awakening almost. Like it was like legitimately like a life-changing experience at that point where it's just like what I tried to do just then didn't work. So in part of my mind, somewhere like this like little tunnel was like a light that was just saying like it's not meant to be that way. Like that was just fate, that it wasn't supposed to happen that way. So I was like, okay, so I guess I'll play into that for now. And then played into it, and that tunnel just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and just like now I'm through that tunnel and feeling like super good about myself, and haven't had those types of thoughts ever since. Feeling super good, surrounding myself with like good people. That's why I've like at that point like also thought of like putting myself around positive people as well as trying to be a positive person myself, because I don't want anyone to go through what I did where they felt like they didn't have people, because like you have every option to also talk to anyone about your problems at all, like whether or not it be like people you didn't talk to for years, to just reach out to someone to just talk about it. But like at that point I just wanted to isolate myself, so I don't want anyone to ever feel that way. So like if there's something that you need to get off your chest, small or big problem, like just get it out. It will feel way better than not than to just bottle it up, because you never know what's going to happen. And I definitely went down a dark path that way, because there was a lot. Like school was probably like on the lower end of like the list, but that was like still something that contributed to that factor of like feeling that way. So yeah, just definitely wanting to be part of that, like that group that just
it strikes me that if I had to bet, I would bet that every person, maybe even a few times in their life, they'll touch something really, really dark. Like really, really dark. And I'm so fascinated in what brings people there in the first place and how to get out. Like how to find a way to thrive or to at least survive in the worst of possible places. And it hits me so hard. Like if someone's in prison, right? The commonly understood worst thing that you can do to them is, or one of the worst things that can be done to them is throw them solitary confinement. And the fact that you could have felt so alone, even though you're surrounded by people and there isn't a guard keeping you, in your room. Why do you think it was hard for you to find people? Would you say that was maybe, what do you think was like the biggest thing that put you in that dark place? Do you think loneliness was maybe at the top of that list?
It wasn't necessarily like loneliness in a sense where it was just like, instead of trying to talk about my problems to other people, because I was thinking I was like, oh, they're probably dealing with a lot for themselves already. Why would I add on my burdens and my problems if I'm just venting it out? Because at that time I didn't have that mindset of like, oh, I'm not burdening these people. I'm just kind of just sort of venting it out. But so like I thought that I'd be throwing all of my problems onto them and all the stuff that they already have to deal with, that like they either wouldn't want to listen, they wouldn't know how to go about it. So I just kind of stuck to myself. I'm just like, I'd rather maybe like for the sake of them, I won't burden them.
So this sort of almost compassion. I want to relieve other people of suffering. I don't want to make them suffer more. Plus all the other problems I'm sure you were facing at the time, compounded with this loneliness, and it was just like this wild cocktail of suffering.
It was just like this witch's cauldron of just like a bunch of bullshit that's just being stirred, and it's just like, then it was there and it completed, and then I was just like, well, fuck, and then just I don't know. It was a lot, but
I'm curious, what do you think, having lived through that, would be some keys to not getting to that point in the first place and to being able to come back if you have gotten to that place?
So to try and prevent yourself from getting to that place is currently, I guess, the same advice that I would give almost if you were already, like if you've been through there already, would be to currently surround yourself with like those like good people that you trust and everything, people that like you really hold close and like you like share this like connection, like an actual deep connection with, and like they're like people who won't talk down on you at all, like actually positively good people around, and like just put yourself around those types of people, because then I feel like if you have those sort of problems and you're around those people, they'll know when something's off. They'll know when something's wrong, so they'll ask you, and it's then up to you to trust them that they'll help you. So just talk about those things to them. And then if you've already been there and you've gotten like, now you're gotten out and you don't want to be there ever again, it's the same advice. It's just kind of put yourself around those people and make sure that you never get back there, because if you haven't been there versus you have been there, you also don't want to go back. It's like a cycle of it too. So
that reminds me of something that a psychologist said regarding whether or not you have a true friend, and it was something along the lines of, if you can tell them your problems and they don't immediately make fun of you or tell you about some worse thing that happened to them at some point, and then just start to make it about themselves. Like if you're surrounded by someone who's doing that and doesn't just, or maybe they'll tell you how stupid you are for being in that situation or insult you, things like that. If someone can just listen to it, one, just listen, and then two, maybe also help in some way, like then you know you found a real friend. And if the person isn't doing that, then it's not a friend.
Yeah. It doesn't make them like a bad person, but it doesn't make them like the best person to talk to about that problem either, necessarily. Because for one, they probably don't know how to go about it, and they could be saying the wrong thing that could be pushing you a bit further away. But yeah, if you're talking to someone and they're just trying to one up your situation and be like, oh yeah, I've been through there and worse, like
you don't know what pain
me.
is, buddy. I felt real pain.
It's like, yeah, but it's not about you right now. It's about me.
Literally.
Like, sure, you may had it worse, but I'm currently dealing with it.
And there's a weird point of relativity, like this saying the worst thing you've been through is the worst thing you've been through, and you're comparing it like you haven't lived through the Holocaust or a genocide or some wild shit like that, and maybe the worst thing that you've had up to that point is, I don't know, the Wi-Fi doesn't work or something ridiculous like that, but it's still eliciting from you a strong emotional response, right?
Yeah.
And so to maybe take a second to respect where that person's at. And also I'm wondering if finding a literal flesh and blood person is difficult for whatever reason. I wonder if internet people can be a good substitute. And even if it's a one-way relationship, like listening to maybe motivational tapes or listening to a bunch of podcasts or conversations where I'm friends with this person, I'm great friends with this person, I've never met them, they've never talked to me, but I'm listening to them all the time, and maybe I'm responding to what they say with my own thoughts. So I kind of have this this community, and I doubt it's as good as the real thing if you could have someone in person that is of the same quality as this online person. But even that, I think, would be helpful in that situation.
It's crazy that you mentioned that because recently I watched a video from Good Mythical Morning, and they have built up this community where it's just like they have really made a video for like every time you're say like you're having breakfast, there's a new video up already for you to watch. Like they've literally become part of your morning routine, as they say for their videos. It's like, thank you for making us part of your daily or your morning routine. So it's like they literally are there as like very much like friends to you.
Fuck yeah.
And they haven't really realized that until like at one point one of the other crew members like reached out through a tweet and was just like, hey, it's like I'm just curious to all the mythical beasts out there, like what has GMM mean, like what does GMM mean to you? And then they all responded back, and they sat Rhett and Link down, who haven't seen these tweets, and they like said it out to him. They're like, wow, we didn't realize like how much we have had an impact on these people, but like, yeah, like if you feel that way, like that's great. Like we never thought that we'd ever reach this point of it, but yeah, we're definitely that type of community where like we may not know you personally, but I'm as much of your friend or family as like you would want me to be.
Yeah, man. And people talk a lot about the internet detaching people from quote unquote real life, or detaching people from communities, but there is that aspect to it as well. The internet to giving you a community.
Yeah, it definitely can go back and forth where like people could lose certain social cues or social aspects because they're too attached to the internet. Yes, like there's an argument to that, but there's also an argument of that, you know, people learn a ton off of the internet as well. They take all the like really good stuff and they become even better people too.
Did you see Ready Player One?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Very good movie.
I feel like we're feeling touches of that now, of diving into the virtual world and having that literally be the world.
Yeah. I remember, do you know what HoloLenses are? No. So the HoloLenses I think are a Microsoft product, and they have not been released for consumers, but they've been released for like much more like factory workers and such. I don't know where at the moment they use it. I haven't researched too much into it, but they have like various versions. I think there's like up to like maybe HoloLens like 2 or 3 now. They've prototyped it like crazy, but it's augmented reality, not virtual reality. Augmented reality in the sense that you still see like what this is, but there's ways for you to alter what you see within those HoloLenses.
Cool. Like I could have a hologram standing here, literally on the reel.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you an example. Like say like if it is like factory work or like construction work, and it's like say like spectacles like this, and they're like say these are like HoloLenses, and you're also wearing it, and we're connected at the moment. But like say you're like 1,000 miles like somewhere else, but like we're talking through these lenses. I see you through like kind of like this like webcam version of it, and I don't know how to say screw in a screw. I don't know how to screw in a screw. You can, from where you are, able to draw an action or like perform an action for me to know how to do it. You can't perform it for me, but you can show me how it's done in this like say like, oh yeah, so step 1, you're like drawing it out,
and you can literally draw like in the air.
Yeah, so like I can like they can see what I see, so like they could be like circling that screw, like you see this screw and you see that screwdriver. Take that screwdriver and turn it, like put it into the screw and turn it this way, and it will go deeper in.
Cool.
And it will be like teaching someone that, like, so that's just an example of like what it could do. It has like many other features of like all these different things, but like it's crazy.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Technology has gone a long way, but like I feel like we're still like behind our technology. Like our technology is advancing like way faster than we can keep up. So like we don't even know what the fuck we can do with these things. Like there's just so much to it.
Dude, have you heard of time dilation?
Time dilation?
Yes.
Sounds familiar.
Where apparently people are working on things in technology where I can put you into a form of augmented reality or virtual reality. I think virtual reality specifically, and I can make you experience time either slower and faster than you normally do. So I can put you in there, and it's like you spent 10 hours in there, but you've only spent 10 minutes. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah, because you can go into a dream, and it can seem like, I don't know, maybe you've spent days in this dream, maybe even weeks. Like, have you ever had some experience? But you wake up, and it's only been 12 hours. So we have a capability within us to switch how we perceive time. And I've heard this being used on the darker end of things for prisoners, so you could have like I don't know, crazy example, 1,000-year sentence, but you're only living out a month. And all the weird ways you could do that. So you could play a video game in one of the Rick and Morty sketches. This actually is a thing where they live out an entire lifetime in the course of like 20 minutes, and they're just playing this video game. So you could literally start to live. I mean, we talked earlier about several lifetimes within lifetime, but this would take that to a whole other level.
So then that makes me think then if that's like a possible thing that they're working on, like say they put someone in there for what, like 10 minutes, but to them feels like 10 hours. Can they use that 10 hours of like doing something productive or learning something, like say trying to learn, like pick up an instrument or something like that? So like 10 hours a day, they're stuck in there, but really it's only 10 minutes, but they're forced to try and learn this. Can they come out from that 10 minutes
On
and
some Matrix
learn?
shit.
Yeah. So like what feels like 2 hours real time to them has been now math.
Yeah,
But,
dude. Then you
like-
start to push the limits of how much can a brain store.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like thinking like, can they come out from there with only 2 hours real time and now be like a professional at like whatever it is that
Maybe.
so that's
Have you heard of the singularity?
singularity. Like
The concept is common in Silicon Valley. It's almost like a new religion that's popping up. So the idea is that let's say we reach a point of, I'll call it critical mass, in the development of one of several technologies. Maybe we reach a certain point in nanotechnology, or a certain point in time dilation, or a certain point in being able to enhance our human brain's processing speed, or developing AI, right? And so on and so forth. There's several other technologies this applies to. And you reach a certain point of development in this technology. And what that does is after you've passed this point, it insanely speeds up the rate of progress for all these other game-changing technologies. So I heard it described, Ray Kurzweil, sci-fi writer and also very smart guy in that field. He wrote a book called The Singularity, describing this sort of thing. But I have heard it described as, imagine the course of a month where you have had literally hundreds, if not thousands, of Nobel Prize winning, reality changing technologies come in the span of a month, and that we're some people say we're getting closer and closer to this point of singularity, where it's this one small point in time where boom, the entire world is different. Like imagine something as crazy as the internet. I can talk to people thousands of miles away. I can learn a million different topics, and so on and so forth. Imagine if you had thousands of that equivalent of technology created, right?
right.
So you go into a coma for a month, come back out. Now people have super strength. We're already going to Mars now. That's like now people can actually go live there. People are living in the VR of Ready Player One level in ways that we just can't imagine.
So it's just like revolutionary thing within like just thing after thing after thing in like just a small amount of time.
And like every one of these developments would, if this were to happen by itself, you'd be like, oh, it's a whole new world now. It's like from moving to a horse to an airplane.
Right.
But then you have hundreds of that happening really quickly.
I feel like that would be like too much for someone to ever even handle. Like they would feel like they're like been out of the loop. They've been like behind on it, and there's so much to catch up on. It's like the person themselves needs an update. Like they need a patch.
Yeah, you might literally happen,
Where the
dude.
fuck have I been?
Like, Cortana in Halo?
Yeah.
Like, you might just have your own personal Cortana.
Yeah.
You might literally have things implanted in you so you can process information as fast as a supercomputer.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, and it sounds so crazy, like it's impossible, the realm of sci-fi, like it never happened. But to think that we're living in an age where we have laser cannons now. We've gone to space. We have, like, dude, think about how quickly video games have developed from Pong, like in the 80s or 70s, from no video games to Pong to VR nowadays, where you can be holding guns and shooting zombies. That was super quick.
Yeah. like it's not that much of a time difference between all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
man.
like you can only think of it like of how much of an exponential ramp that we're gonna get in a smaller amount of time, like from 200 years to 150 to 100, like 50 to the next year. You're getting this like crazy shit that's happening.
And to think we could be alive within that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. Excited to see like what could be in store.
Yes.
For like our younger generations to come. It's like, oh, we didn't. Then it'll be like, I was like, oh, we didn't have this when we were younger.
Literally. Dude, my dad literally came to America on a propeller plane.
Oh, really?
From Puerto Rico, yeah. Well, he was technically still in America, but
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Here we live in the age of spin.
Spin.
Mm-hmm, where it's the age of just such unknown. It's just this wacky question mark of what the fuck humanity is going to do.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in a vortex of what the fuck.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Literally, I've heard described if you look over the long arc of history and you were to go from 10,000 years ago to 9,000 years ago to 8,000 years ago, a lot of the technologies wouldn't be very different.
Mm-hmm.
People are probably still using bows and arrows, still being transported around on like horse and buggy.
Mm-hmm.
But then over the past few hundred years, it's like, oh my God, if you're to do like I just said, go from 1,000 years to 1,000 years in the future, it's like, holy shit, nuclear fission, fucking airplanes, going to the moon, so on and so forth. Yeah, yeah.
Like, I was thinking like how they thought of like cars like back then with like just the very first form of a car versus like trying to tell them that our future now is like, have you ever heard Tesla? It's like, they're like, what the fuck is that? What do you mean it runs on electric? What the fuck's electricity?
It can drive itself? Like, what?
What the fuck's a lane? And it can detect lanes?
You have interstate highways?
Huh.
Like there's just one road that goes from the East Coast to the West Coast? What?
No way.
No fucking way.
That's just not connected?
Yeah. It must be broken down. Probably robberies happen all the time on the highway. Like, nah, bro. Potholes
Unclaimed
everywhere.
territory. It's very dangerous. You'll probably die if you cross it.
You don't die of dysentery anymore? What is this?
Literally the Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
Just like that. All of that.
And the fact that it seems so normal, that's one of the things that constantly baffles me. It's like, yeah, can go up. People can view it thousands of miles away. There's no emotional response I have to that.
Yeah, but like I'm also thinking on the caliber of like we lived in a time of like, did you have a flip phone growing up at all?
Yeah.
You did?
Or a slide, one of the two.
Yeah, either way, it's not like what we have now with like the phones. But like we've been through so many generations of like updates of like phones. Went from like very first, so we had flip phones or slide phones. People had like sidekicks. People had Nokias, like Razors, where it's like your typical common flip phone. But then now it's like the first ever iPhone. It's like it's touch screen and all this stuff. Like you don't have to flip it. It's just this one flat screen. It has all the widgets and
Go on the
apps.
fucking internet
You
on
go,
it.
yeah, exactly. As opposed to before, like you'd probably need to pay to go on this terrible version of internet there, where you would have to, I don't know.
Like it was only for texting and calling very recently.
And texting on a flip phone, you'd
oh
have
my
to
God.
say you wanted the letter C.
Just call. It's more
Right.
more convenient,
You
right?
had to press 1 3 fucking times in order to get the letter C.
Dude, and now it's just, I've gone to restaurants where they will, from the start, give you just a QR menu.
Yep.
They don't even give you, they'll give you a menu with drinks, and on it is a QR code. And if you ask for a real menu, they're like, kind of take, like, what, you don't have a phone? Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's weird because like it makes it seem like we're slowly transitioning into a much more dependent technology type of world where like we're starting to forget like our roots and stuff like that. But like I'm just thinking we're so like nonchalantly adapting to all of this, and like we don't even think of it until we think back, like until like I just had mentioned flip phones. Now we're thinking like, oh wow, we really do have all this shit on like our phones now. Like I can watch anything from anywhere, call anyone from anywhere without having to go and buy minutes like from a phone store.
I can buy a car on my phone.
Yeah, it's like, you what? I would have to go to a dealership and talk to these people.
No.
There's a thing out there that looks like a fucking vending machine now that you can get a car called Carvana. So, like, that's crazy.
Do I just want food? You want food right now? You want just sushi brought to our literal doorstep?
Yeah.
Like I'm an emperor? Yeah.
I can have that happen. I just got to pay for the guy, like, through my phone, you know.
You could pay through your phone?
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Crazy, right? I have this little plastic thing that holds all my money.
And even that's going away, right? Dude,
Yeah.
imagine if cryptos became the norm. I hear some places are taking crypto now as a legitimate currency.
Places used to take Bitcoin. Places like before Bitcoin was that big, people used to take Bitcoin and people would actually sell their Bitcoin for it. And
they're probably kicking the shit out of themselves now.
They're just like kicking the walls, punching everything in their sight, just like, seeing that it spiked up to like 70,000 at one point per Bitcoin. They're like,
what the fuck? But that's the weird game of investing, man.
Yeah.
Because especially something as volatile as that, it could drop to like from 30,000 to 2,000 overnight. It could go that extreme too.
Yeah, then you're like, holy shit, I just lost so much money. But then the other thing about it is like, you didn't lose that money just yet. It could go back up.
And did you have the balls to hold on to it?
Yeah, exactly. Or is it gonna get worse? Who knows?
Yeah.
I was like that with Dogecoin. Did you invest in Dogecoin at all?
I don't know. I have some Ethereum and little Bitcoin, some things like that. But I wasn't on the Doge wave. It could still.
Yeah, no, I was on the Doge wave when it was about. I wish I hopped into it even earlier, but I hopped onto it when it was like about 5 cents.
Oh my god.
Yeah, about 5 cents, and I put about $150 into it, and I got about 3,000 Dogecoins. So like 3,000 Dogecoins, like each one of these could be like worth so much at one point. And then I like held on for like a couple months, and then like it started getting like to like 10 cents and 15 cents. I'm like, whoa, it's getting up there. Yeah. So like already it's 3 times the amount that I had bought it for. Holy shit. And then the peak of it went to 75 cents. The peak.
God damn.
Yeah, it went to 75 cents, and I'm looking through my Robinhood like, that's a lot of money I got right now that I could just like try and cash out.
But what if it goes to $1, $2,
Exactly.
$3?
So I held on. I was like, if it reaches $1, I'll sell if it reaches $1. That was like my
the cutoff point.
The cutoff point. It's like, if it reaches $1, I'm gonna sell it because that's a shit ton of money that I just like now got out from it.
Yeah.
If it goes higher, whatever.
Did you have a low cutoff point too?
So it did go back down. It didn't quite reach $1. It went back down. It kept going back down after it went to 75 cents, probably because a shit ton of people started selling. So the market of it just went back down, down, and down, down, and has stayed that way for a while. It went
Are you
back,
still holding on to it?
No, I did sell, but I sold like a bit late. I still made maybe 4 or 5 times the amount.
That's not that bad.
5 times. I made 5 times the amount that I invested. But yeah, because I sold it at 25 cents. But I was like, damn, if I had sold it at 75.
Dude, I was listening actually earlier to someone called Ray Dalio, and if you're ever interested in investing, he's the Mike Tyson, Michael Jordan of investing, like hands down. If you're curious, man, listen, he has Instagram channel, and he'll just post little tidbits on it. And he said one of the hardest parts about the investing world is that so often you have to go against your instincts.
Yeah.
Like your emotions, because the point at which it's best to sell, if you consult your emotions, they'll be screaming to hold on to it, right? And the point at which it's best to buy or to hold on, your emotions will probably be screaming to don't buy, don't hold on to it, like sell it now. And that's a strange part about the investing game, to be able to step out from, like, detach. Just detach from your emotions, if only for a second, to make those sorts of business decisions. And that's just that seemed a very useful piece of advice.
Yeah. It's like what was like Doctor Strange's mentor, where like she like hits him outside of his own body. Yeah, it's like that, and it's just like telling your physical self like, fuck you, don't listen to that.
Dude, that's an interesting skill to have, being able to detach from emotions.
Yeah.
To be like in the heat, because you'll get a weird perspective. I don't know if you've ever not been in an argument. You heard, I don't know, your parents or some friends or just random people
Right.
on the street arguing, and you have no emotional stake in it. And you can see much more clearly hypocrisies people are making when someone's saying, oh, you need to do this because of XYZ, but you can see as they're going through the argument, like, wait, you're not doing exactly what you're telling them.
Yeah, you've done that.
Yeah, like you're literally doing that in the argument.
Yeah.
And there's a strange clarity you can get from being able to detach from that emotion. And even if the detachment is literally like I'm getting up and I'm walking away from it for a second, but you begin to realize there's like a muscle I can build inside of me. So slowly and steadily, I don't have to do as much physical things. Like, let's say we're in an argument, like, okay, let me just take a breather, walk away. You walk away for, I don't know, a few hours, and you kind of calm down.
Right.
You get some clarity, you can come back. But you start to realize, oh, I can learn to do that quicker and quicker, and I can be in the argument. And, all right, I'm noticing that I'm like, oh, my fucking breathing's getting heavier. Like, I'm moving quickly. My rage is spiking. Okay, snap. I'm detached from it for a second. How do I view the arguments now? And it can just offer some very important keys and insights.
Yeah, very, very much so. Like, you cloud a lot of your judgment if that were the case for it. And I feel like that would definitely be a power for sure to be able to just snap right into that from 100 straight back to like 0.
Yes.
And you're just like, then now you can think clearly of everything. That would definitely be a power.
If you're interested in that, or anybody who's listening, a man called Jocko Willink, who was a military commander. And he just said that was incredibly useful, right? Because it's hard to imagine a situation in which your emotions will be more spiked than a battlefield. And he said he would pride himself on his ability to, and that in the military, apparently this is something people pride themselves on. If you're in the heat of it, right? Like you're in a terrible situation, you're getting shot at, like you're seconds away from potentially dying, but you go on the radio and you're not like, I didn't think that, no. Because then it's just going to be static, and then other people start panicking, and panic has a weird tendency to spread.
Yep.
But if you just go on it in the heat of all that, and you're like, excuse me, I need fire at this location, 151 coordinates, like XYZ, and then he just said it was incredibly useful. And yeah.
Yeah, that would be very. Yeah, it's funny that you say that because a panic, it does spread like wildfire. They see one person panic, like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? And then they see, like, you look over to your right, that person's panicking because that person's panicking. Like, what's going on?
Because it's weird. This is a funny quote from Joe Rogan. He's talking about a story where he's in a fire. Well, he's in a supposed fire in this hotel, and they're going down the stairwell because he said don't use the elevators. And he's like, okay, don't panic, because a lot of people are like half dazed. They woke up in the middle of their sleep. A lot of people are probably on sleeping pills. That was like the part of its joke. And it's on This Is Not Happening. Dude, if you've never seen that, it's a collection of comedy skits where people just tell stories. It's on YouTube. This Is Not Happening. Wonderful thing. So continuing on. And he's like, man, don't panic. You don't want to be the first guy to panic, but you don't want to be the last guy to panic either. Like if everyone's freaking out and running, you don't want to be the guy that's like, hey, come on, man, everyone calm down. But like 99% of people are freaking out. Like maybe there's a time to freak out and be spazzy.
Yeah.
And then it's just like,
you're a little too calm right now for this situation.
You should be running really fast. Maybe screaming.
Yeah. You're like a guy that has nothing to lose at this moment. So you should freak out a little bit.
So maybe there's, on the opposite token, it's good to be able to go from a 0 to 100 and then from 100 back to 0 to be like water, right? Know when is it time to explode, when is it time to cool.
Very cool.
Yes.
It's very funny because like then there's always, I think there's like been pranks out there when people, and I mean I'm pretty sure you aren't allowed to do this, but people yelling like fire and stuff like that.
God, yeah.
And like you just see like a whole crowd of people, like once the person yells that, then everyone just starts running. Either that or like it's another like harmless prank where a person is running and looks like they're in like panic, and they just keep turning around, and it's just a cameraman just showing like how people react when they run by these people. They're just like panting and running, and like just as they run by, they're just looking back like,
dude, I have a friend who I'm not gonna name, but you know who the fuck you are, who I swear to God, if he doesn't stop doing this, he's gonna get himself fucking shot. We're in a thrift store, right? And so we'll stack on several things, right? Okay, so there is a stereotype placed on to the black community in America that a lot of people have. Whether or not they admit it, there is a very, whether through movies you see, what's constantly on the news, I'm not saying it's accurate, but there can be this caricature you have in the back of your head, right? So you stack that on top of he's wearing like boots, I think jeans or sweatpants, and he's kind of fit, and we're in a thrift store, and he puts on a trench coat, and he is wearing the trench coat with his hands like deeply in his pockets, and he just starts power walking around and like frantically like turning his head and twitching, and we're like, stop fucking doing that. And like, and every now and then he'll stop and like rip open his jacket and like, this isn't like you're gonna get shot. You're gonna activate someone's PTSD who's like an army veteran here.
Oh my God.
Just tackles you. But yeah. Yeah.
It's very funny.
And you could say like, what, man? I'm just walking around, like looking around quickly. It's like, no, we're evolved to have our alarm systems go off if someone's fidgeting or twitching. Like, you don't want to see that.
Funny, but not funny at the same time.
Yeah. Funny if nothing bad happens.
Right. It's on topic of stereotypes. It's funny because there's a story about Robert. One time, I took him to an Asian market one time. So very nostalgic to me. Felt like home. Just a regular market for me. And I'm like seeing all these different snacks that I've been used to growing up. And he's like, "Oh, I've never seen these." So I'm like exposing him to this like culture.
Beautiful.
And then it's funny because like he like forgot that we were out in public at one point, and then he was like reading some of the snacks names, and like
Did he say it with an Asian accent?
He said it with an Asian accent, and he was like reading the snack, and there was an Asian family, like literally. Yeah, he finished his sentence, and I was like, I looked at Robert, and like I like smiled at him, and then I like blinked, kind of like awkwardly, and I was just like, and he like. He turned it back to me. He was like, he widened his eyes. He was like,
oh, he did the eye slit.
He like widened his eyes, and he just looked at me, and he was like, oops. I was like, I forgot where I was for a second. I was like, yeah, and there's a family like right there.
Dude, what was the look on the family's face? Did they have?
I don't know if they fully heard him or not, but he said it kind of loud.
Maybe
was
they
like,
just thought he was from the mainland.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like he forgot where he was for a second, and I didn't take any offense to it. It takes a lot to like offend me in that sense for like with like stereotypes of like Asians.
There could be such funny shit in the realm of stereotype comedy that is some of my favorite comedy, and I kind of hate that we're getting so fucking sensitive about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like people it's not always racist.
Yeah, people get like I feel like nowadays people are very sensitive to a lot of like jokes. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that are way more heavier of it. So obviously those people have strayed away from that. But then it also people should know when something is just a joke and had no ill intent behind it. So that's where it like comes in where like people can't take jokes nowadays anymore. Like it's so different that you can't really say a lot without person like now like bombarding you with like why you shouldn't be saying that because now they're this and this person that they know would have like hated you for this.
That gets weird because I've been that guy before, and I know my friends, if they're watching, they'll be like, yeah, you know what the fuck you've done, Alex, where I've tried to steer us away at times from certain realms of comedy. And it's hard for me to know when is it okay to laugh at something. Because there are times where it seems like there is a strong argument to be made for, I don't know, like a Holocaust joke, where it's like, okay, maybe like this stuff can get really dark, and maybe we're losing something really sacred if we make light of this atrocity. Like you're almost teaching yourself to associate lighthearted emotion like the Joker. Like at what point do you literally become the Joker, the person who's laughing at these darkest of things, where it's like, okay, this is kind of psychopathic, like we shouldn't be laughing at this. But that's a weird line, man, because some of the funniest fucking things that I've ever heard are some of the darkest things I've ever heard. So it's difficult, man.
Yeah, no, I've seen and heard like a fair share of dark jokes, and man, it's pretty funny. You get like you feel bad at one point for kind of laughing, but at the same time you're like, damn, I really enjoyed that.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh, okay.
Like,
No, yeah, continue.
I was gonna say, like, I heard this joke on TikTok where like it was like a guy going back and forth telling dark jokes. It was like, and whoever laughed would like lose, and he was like telling it like almost like a story. It was just like, so yeah, a man and a child walk into the woods at night, and the child turns to the man and says, "Wow, Mister, like these woods are getting like it's getting really dark here. I'm like pretty scared." And then the man turns to the child and says, "You're telling me I have to walk back alone?" And then it's just a child just like, what do you mean?
Oh, that's a good one.
So it's like, goddamn. So what fucking happens? But like, yeah, it's like you get a little laugh out of it as much as it is like kind of like a dark humor, dark joke. But I don't know. People are pretty sensitive about like anything nowadays.
And there is something weird. Like if you were to put that into text and then just read off the text, you lose so much.
Yeah.
So much.
You need the tone. You need someone to say it.
And also it's like the community of people who knows each other's sense of humor and you're saying it to each other. Like if you're making okay, I'll say this really fucked up joke, the specifics of which I forget, but it was so goddamn funny. And it's one of those things where I almost hate myself afterwards for laughing at. But I'm with the homies and I forget why. We're talking about like Skyrim. Like if you can create your own form of Skyrim, what would you create? Like what would you do? And at some point we're talking about, do you ever play the No Russian mission in Modern Warfare 2? Okay. And we're talking about like,
this took a turn already.
Right? We're going to the deep waters, Ben. Join me if you'd like. Okay. So we're like, that was such a fun mission. Why the fuck was that such a fun mission? For those of you that don't know, No Russian is a mission in a Call of Duty in which you are an undercover agent who's part of what is essentially a terrorist cell. And you go into a airport, and this is fucking horrible, and it is, but as I played it as a kid, it was one of my most enjoyable missions, so psychologically assess me as you will. And you just go into this airport, and you just start killing. You're essentially a mass shooter. Like you're with a squad of, and eventually the military comes and you have to fight them too. But the mission starts and you're just a mass shooter essentially. And I'm looking back on that with like the homies and we're like, what the fuck? Why was that such an enjoyable mission as a kid? And we never found out exactly why. I associated to something like lawn mowing. Like sometimes it's so satisfying to just see the tall grass get mowed. And it's so fucked up, but it was so true. And
oh my God.
This is how I get canceled and fucking have a mob outside of my... But hey, man, this seems like it's a worthwhile part of human nature to investigate. And within that spirit, I will continue.
I mean, I feel like part of it, like, while maybe not quite the lawn mowing part, maybe not quite the lawn mowing.
I may never be able to run for political office now, but we'll see how that goes. Anywho,
I don't know. Like, I guess like as a kid, the premise of like a game like Call of Duty is like we want to just shoot people, and we know there's like we'll go against other players, we'll shoot them and try to kill them, but in that mission itself, we're like, oh my God, there are just so many people right here to shoot. I can kind of see all of these guys as like bad people, and there's just a mass of people that I can just like have fun. But it doesn't sound that good.
It's not, but it kind of we can't deny it was fun.
It's hard. It's hard to justify how fun it was.
It really is.
But like, if you get it, you get it.
Honest to God, if you get it, you get it.
If you don't, we'll look like psychopaths. But
and maybe there's a little bit of that. That's true.
But I've had my fun. Okay?
Yes, God damn it. And you know what? Should video games like that be allowed to be made? I wonder.
Well, continuing on with the Call of Duty franchise, while No Russians was one of like the most controversial missions that there was, in one of the newer Call of Duties, I don't know if you know this, but in one of the newer Call of Duties, they have a mission where you have to silence a family. And it means...
Silence?
Yes. I think the objective says to silence the family or silence the baby. Oh. So, but the thing is, if you shoot the baby, you fail the mission. And it will restart you back at the checkpoint. So you're supposed to either just like walk up to like the family and just like shush them, like hush their mouth or like whatever, like cover their mouths, or you shoot the mother or something like that, and then you kind of like muffle like the baby so it doesn't cry, something like that. It was like I think they were in. I didn't play it, but I've seen videos. And the thing is, if you keep doing that over and over, like that mission, not that mission, but that part,
the FBI gets a warning letter.
If you keep shooting the baby, you will get swatted. No, if you keep shooting the baby, you essentially they send you back to the main menu of the game, and they literally have a text box that just says like, "What is wrong with you?" So like you fail.
Give you a psychology hotline.
Exactly. So like you just you fail the mission, you get sent back to the main menu, and I'm sure it's like further in the mission that happens. But like people have made YouTube videos like, what if you do this, and people have figured out that is what happens if you do that. But I'm thinking in my mind, how many times, like without a person trying to experiment that, I wonder how many people have
just done that
and it's happened to them. Like no recording, they just wanted to do that. Like that's when it's fucked up, as opposed to just seeing what happens if the game like actually had some extra step to it, where they actually did was like, hey, you're fucked up. So then you actually dealt with a bit of the consequences of now you have to restart the mission.
Dude, and that brings up a deep question that as a kid I hated the concept of people saying like, it'll desensitize you, it'll fuck with you, because I always just like, leave me the fuck alone. I just want to play my game that I love, because I deeply, deeply love playing video games like a Fallout. You ever play Fallout? Yes, that RPG style. And every now and then, I would just go, this is going to be my psychopath file. This is my dark Sith Lord file, where I'm just going to explore that part of me, like the dark side.
Yep.
And if I go back and play that kind of game now with that sort of style, I start to feel like this empty. It's so hard to describe exactly the feeling. It originates like around my gut, my solar plex, and it's this mild, quiet disgust that almost feels like a desensitized, cold, like disgust. And there's still paired with that a strange satisfaction to going through a village and just playing the barbarian. I'm just gonna wipe out everything in sight. Fucking burned. I forget what it is. Salt the fields. War style. Unleash the dogs of war. Like literally.
Yeah.
And playing it as an adult, I don't like to do that anymore. It's like it literally just feels like it's fucking with my psyche, and it makes me wonder. Does that actually affect a kid? Like, if you play video games and you play that style, right? Like, your parents don't really watch you play video games, as probably most parents don't. If you start to hear of, like, I don't know, potentially, let's say in America, for crazy example, a civil war might be coming. Like, let's say some shit like that. Do you start to take it as almost a game? Or you hear something in Ukraine, do you start to make, like, really fucked up jokes about mass shootings and things like that? To a point where it's like, okay, it's not funny anymore, because as fucked up as this sounds, I've heard some mass shooting jokes, the specifics of which I don't remember, but I've laughed at. Like, I found them funny, and it didn't seem like we're going into the waters of consciously becoming a psychopath right now, because I wonder to what degree you can make yourself a psychopath. But
it becomes different when it becomes way more relevant. Like, I feel like it's like, too soon of a joke kind of deal. Like, people make jokes about, again, it's fucked up, and like 9/11 jokes all the time. And I'll admit I have laughed at some of these, but there has been funny ones. But it's fucked up nonetheless. Like, when we look back on it, like, that was a fucking tragic day that happened, and it changed America for like ever. But it's just like people try to find some sort of like almost like a light to it. And
there's a degree to it. Okay, real quick. One of the funniest podcasts I've ever seen is Louis C.K. with Andrew Schultz. It's a pretty recent one. Fucking wonderful. I highly recommend it. And one of the first things he says on the podcast is like, man, 9/11, it's horrible. And you like, it's fucking, I don't want to take anything away from all the like pain that people felt and the rage. And it was a horrible event. And that being said, you got to just kind of sit back and be like, man, they really hit the ball out of the park with that one. Like, Because like if you just objectively, if you look at that, what the terrorists did, like with what they had, home run, guys, like bullseye. And it's still horrible. It's fucking like there's no excuse for it. It's terrible. I wish they didn't do it. The families and their pain, like I don't want to insult them and all that. And then just that being said, like you hit the ball out of the park, guy.
Jesus.
Right. And that's so fascinating that like Jesus Christ is like the natural thing a person will say to that. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's funny that you invoke divinity oftentimes when you hear something like that.
It's just like they were like trying to pay like a tribute to it. It's like very like, you know, fucked up thing that they did. And you're like, man, then you take a comedic pause, you're like, so anyways, and it's just like, but then he takes it a step further and just like, you guys you
nailed it.
You did it.
Yeah. That was hit America right in the balls with that one.
Yeah, I've had a fair share of videos that I've seen that have dealt with that. One today actually, but I feel like it's too fucked up to even mention.
Fair enough. The internet can get fucking weird, man.
Oh yeah.
Like I wonder how much it can detach you from reality in times. Like let's say you go down that path because the troll rabbit hole goes deep in the internet. The depths of hell you can explore by going down that almost cold, like you turn atrocities into a different thing if your only relationship with them is internet memes, GIFs, video games, and other people online like joking about it.
Right.
Like, excuse me. That doesn't seem entirely healthy, and I hesitate to go down that road because it's not like I've studied this very in depth and know what it will do to someone's nature and their moral God damn, I have the hiccups. Moral compass. This is the worst time to have hiccups.
Do you know the cheat to get?
Well, I'd have a thing where I hold my breath.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you do filler for a second?
Yeah, for sure. So, God, no, like, sorry.
No, you're good. They seem gone at the moment. You're good.
Pressure's on now.
Okay. Oh no, they're gone. So yeah.
Are they? Okay.
Weirdly, yeah.
Okay. I've seen so many different methods that people have said, like a spoonful of sugar or something like that. Something along those lines of sugar.
I've heard they're getting spooked.
Yeah, like scaring the hiccups away from someone.
Yes.
My method was either always like take like a couple sips of water, like and swallow it down, just like little small sips and just swallow it down, or just hold my breath.
This is what I've done, like a hold breath, then do the swallow, like the musculature swallow, and then you'll almost like hold the air down there.
Yeah,
and that seemed to have helped.
Like you feel like that bubble, like
yes,
come down.
Yeah. And then when you bring it down around like the upper chest region, and I'll hold it there, and then that has often gotten rid of the hiccups.
Yeah,
man, fucking. I like the wide variety of topics we're covering on this podcast.
Yeah, we've derailed so many times and gone on back onto the track of it, and then derailed again.
Fucking A, right? This is like. I heard someone describe their method for podcasting as like going on an Alice in Wonderland-esque adventure.
Oh.
And I like that. Like, it's just going to be an exploration, and you don't know what you're going to find on this exploration.
Right.
But let's just dive in and enjoy.
with a lot of like podcasts that I have seen, I've seen like people who are like either like the face of like the podcast and talking, but then there's also people like behind the camera who like they get some screen time too, but they'll be like the mediators of like, oh yeah, let's like wrap up this topic and move on to the next thing. Like if you have to, like if you want to touch up on it, like maybe in another episode or something like that.
I feel you. Like, you ever watch Joe Rogan Experience?
I have seen clips of it, but I have never fully watched like an episode of it.
Got you. Yeah, because there's a guy who doesn't exactly tell them how to stay on track, but he's the behind the scenes technical guy, and he'll say things every now and then. I would love to have that. Someone who can just Google things whenever I want, like on a snap, because it fucks with the conversational flow.
Yeah.
If I'm like, oh, we're talking about this thing, let me stop the conversation and look on my phone for a second.
Right. That's why there's a lot of people who have like pre-planned topics that they want to talk about. Like maybe they'll theme it to like the season or something like that.
I generally do. I just almost never go to the notes. Like, the thing I want to find out on this podcast is largely what people care about, what people value.
Right.
But I find that oftentimes that gets revealed in a very organic, I'll call it, an organic way, just by talking about what people enjoy.
Right.
Because think about, we're talking about earlier the little things to kind of go full circle with it, that some of the biggest impacts in your life are a result of the many little things you've done once they're accumulated. So what people enjoy, what people love to do, what people have fun doing, like example, we're talking about the video games and the chats you're on and things like that. I imagine you spend a lot of time in those realms, right? And so in a sense, that is what you really value.
Yeah.
So if I want to get into that, to just talk about shit we have fun talking about, you'll learn a lot about what people deeply care about, what is meaningful to them in their life.
Yeah.
And then every now and then I'll ask the more pre-planned questions, like what's the deepest suffering you ever experienced,
right,
or some of your biggest regrets, because you get on the dark end of meaning.
Right.
And I'll do that only if I feel like a quiet lull, but like this, just going off on a rail about the video games, that's perfect.
Chef's kiss.
Yes,
Chef's kiss.
yeah. I'd ask for nothing else.
But yeah, there's a lot of times where it's like because it feels more natural that way, that when you kind of just have like just an open conversation about anything, at least like on the start of it, and then like at one point it's like, how many times can we have like another, like the same person maybe on like a podcast where like, now let's talk about something like completely different. Like, let's actually have some like pre-planned like things to talk about. And it's so easy to just derail on something because like maybe just one word out of that sentence where it's like, oh, speaking of, a baby, Call of Duty mission. There's I don't know. It's
behind one word, there are a million things that could, like spider webs that one word is attached to.
It's like, let me finish my thought and then I'll get to that. And then it just spans out. That's like the beauty of like podcasts and everything.
Fuck yeah. And it's so weird, man, because as you're talking, well, first off, I used to be more, although it might not seem like this to listeners, it used to be more structured, more like interviewee, just ask question. But I found that the podcast feels like it has a higher quality if I engage it with more of the mindset of, I'm just going to dance with whoever I'm talking to at the moment. And that dance will change depending on the person. I want it to be a custom flow for each particular person. For some people, structured works better. For some people, free flow works much better. Yep. But I noticed that I used to just be like, okay, maybe narcissistic. Like, I'm going to play the game that's important to me. I have these very clear topics, and I'm going to go about investigating them in these specific ways. Like, what do you care about? What do you value most in life? What's the best dreams you have for the future? And I would just inject that into the conversation.
Right.
But watching back as I edit my podcast and things, I would notice oh, this is a lot of me just talking and almost not tuning into the person.
Right.
Like, I'm just so focused on what I expected to talk about beforehand. I'm missing all these wonderful things that could be appearing in the moment.
Yeah. It's like you ask one question and you're already thinking about the second question, so therefore you're not even thinking about them answering your first one or something like that. So you just got to really tune in, and then as it happens, it happens. So
that's one of the biggest parts of this, man. Just being willing to let go of the million thoughts I'm going to have pop into my head while you're talking.
Right.
And just stay tuned into listening.
Yeah.
And then
there's a lot that goes on for sure.
Fuck yeah. And then it's just about feeling the moment to, now I say, now you say, now I say, now you say. Yeah.
It's like, it could be like, back and forth on one topic, or it's like, oh, well, now we're done with that topic. We can hop into another thing that you had mentioned or something like that. It's like, how meta right now, actually, that we're talking about podcasts on a podcast.
Fourth wall breaks, bitches. Deadpool's about to walk in. The king of fourth wall breaks. Yes.
God.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Indeed. So yeah, shooting babies. That's terrible. That's not a good. That's
not the best transition.
That's a terrible transition. I'm sorry that I said it, but that does make me think, man. Like in Fallout, they wouldn't let you harm kids.
Yeah,
which was a very interesting part of it, which ties weirdly into a lot of religions where the mother and the child are very sacred figures, and in a way, it's kind of obvious because the culture that doesn't value the mother and the child, that culture will just break apart, large in part because the children aren't being nurtured. So the adults you have are poorly nurtured children, and the slew of problems that comes along with that. And obviously, if you don't value the babies, you just won't reproduce as a culture and things along those lines. So it just makes me wonder, should a video game even be legally allowed to do something like that, where you even can shoot a baby? That's...
It's probably a risk in the developers' minds of like, well, this isn't like something like this isn't like the main focus, but like it's like that additive point of like how realistic can we let the gamers play of like giving them that freedom of choice.
Yeah.
So while it doesn't contribute to the story whatsoever on their actions that may be so miscellaneous but quite heavy in consequence, just be like, you know, they can do what they want. But a lot of games, yes, you can't harm children. They can't die. Like in Skyrim, I'm pretty sure you can hit the kids in the game.
But it just doesn't harm them.
It doesn't harm them. They'll just like kind of run away.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. You'll still get a bounty.
Yeah. Good job, Skyrim.
Like you still get consequences for hitting someone like that, but they don't die.
But you won't see blood or damage marks or anything like that.
Yeah. It's just like it just shows no feature or at all any animation that the child was hurt.
Which is, when you talk about a military game like a Call of Duty, and okay, let's say on that mission, because there are some very real missions people have been sent on where like this family needs to die, period. And sometimes, even in a fucked up way, that has been done for good. And maybe it's actually been good that that's happened, right? Easy example to bring up is World War II. If you're on a mission where you have to assassinate a Nazi family for whatever reason that they have this huge influence XYZ. And also, to kind of trail off for a second, I heard someone say, actually Jocko, the guy I was talking about earlier, that if you decide to go to war, you're deciding that you're going to kill. You have to have the will to kill. You have to have the will to kill innocent people. Not on purpose, but that's definitely going to happen in war. No matter how skilled you are, no matter how great the technology is, that happens, period. And then also he talked about you have to have the willingness to die. But if you're going to give people the experience of diving into the world of war, how real are we going to make it? Or with a Skyrim thing, like if you want to give someone the experience of being a Viking, something along those lines, and you're raiding a village,
right?
Like, what is morally okay to actually allow people to do?
Right.
You know what Vikings are doing a lot of the time? Raping, killing, like everybody,
pillaging, like everything.
Yes.
And yeah.
So is that okay to allow in a virtual sense? Right? That's a
part of me wants to say that like it's okay, like in like, because there's always that argument that like video games influence bad behaviors or like violent behaviors when
I'd
like
love
the
to see
child,
studies about that. Yeah. But,
yeah, when people like grow up and stuff like that. So like yeah, while like I would say that they should allow it just to show a more realism or realistic way of doing it. If like someone is playing a game to like just purely like just raid villages and like kill families and like yeah, then it's like it gets a little fucked up, a little weird.
Yeah.
But like the fact that like I feel like people would appreciate in a sense that they give the players that freedom of choice to do it, although it could have like a negative consequence. Like say maybe part of your moral was like you killed that family or something. You're playing like Skyrim, but they allowed this. You pillaged this, or you like raided this village and you killed this family, but you maybe like you left the child or something. Maybe that child comes back later in the story along the lines
and
attacks you because of what you did back then or something like that. Maybe that could be an option, but like that would be a lot for like the developers to have to think about. It doesn't add to the story, but it's at that like
it kind of could.
It could if it was like yeah, I guess if they intently do so. I don't know. I feel like it's very hard because then there's a lot of villages that could be in Skyrim that could happen over and over and over, and they just have to like really like write that out in like the coding of like the games and stuff like that. But it's very, I don't know. I would say that like they should allow that freedom of choice for players. That way they can feel the consequence. So that way they can kind of immerse themselves a bit more. Like because as you mentioned, like you feel like a little dark sometimes on like the certain choices that you make. Typically, I've always played as like a character that kind of made like I tried to make the best of choices where like
yeah, that feels wonderful. I gotta say, when you play the good guy, a lot of times like I just feel better when I'm playing the game.
Yeah, I was like, but it's always that like what if, and then you play the other file of like, you know what, I'm gonna be like just the biggest asshole of this file.
I'm gonna be Joker, like
yeah, exactly.
for a little bit.
So then you do that, then you're like, I don't know if I felt better doing that or if I like felt better doing the like playing as the good guy. So it's just not something that you're as used to. So let players figure that out for themselves if they can like add that. Sure,
fair enough. And just a very important question of just what does it do to the person? Like if you did studies and somehow found that it has no negative side effects to this person's actions, why shouldn't it be allowed?
Sorry,
The mosquitoes are
I just heard it like buzz in my ear for a second.
That here, weirdly, would you like the headphone?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
But if it didn't actually change anything negatively in how they acted in life,
Right.
then is there any problem with it?
I guess not necessarily. No, it kind of just all boils down to like how it affects them within themselves doing that. Because obviously it's very much out of the norm in video games to be able to harm or kill like kids or like just any like younger figure in a game. It's just like that normally isn't supposed to happen. So it kind of has that shock factor to you. So because it's so out of the norm, and if they do start implementing it now, people are just gonna be like, holy shit, this is like a different world. It's weird now. But like in a sense, I feel like players or like people would give that like appreciation. It's like, wow, you guys made me feel like a terrible human being for like you allowed me to feel like a terrible human being for once in playing a game.
Or to be completely honest, to enjoy that strange dark joy of being the Joker. Because I got to admit, when I see the Joker, when he in the Joaquin Phoenix version flipped that switch where he's like, I'm the Joker now, there was a coolness to it. The dancing down the stairs, the not giving a fuck, the taking each cigarette smoke like it was the most beautiful thing in the world, the acting out on what he felt was right.
Right.
I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he made the right decisions. But there is still a part of me that I have to contend with that looked at that and like there are parts of you that I think are cool.
It kind of just like something you just kind of want to embrace for once and just try to see like what that would be like.
Like the I don't give a fuck, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it kind of thing. There's something strangely appealing to that. And then I'm struck by a porn star's argument for allowing those oh god, this is a gross realm, but it also is seemingly an important realm. The step family pornos, which have become incredibly popular, or the porns where I'm having sex with a barely 18 person, but you can tell the way they've edited the person's clothing and the actor's mannerisms that they're supposed to be an underage person. And like the actress freely admits like, no, like we're designing it that way on purpose. We just can't say it because then banks won't allow us to store our money there as a company. But maybe there's some sort of good. Oh, by the way, this is a actual wonderful podcast with of all people, I think he's a mathematician, someone called Eric Weinstein, and the porn star Riley Reid, which is a strange combination, but it works out wonderfully on a podcast called The Portal. But anyway, and she says maybe there's some good in allowing people to release this desire. Like it's this buildup, it's this pressure buildup, and I get to release that pressure in a way that isn't harmful. And maybe there's an argument to be made for that when someone has a bad day at work and they just go through GTA on I'm just going to kill everything in sight mode. Maybe there's some good in that. I'd love to see studies on this, honestly.
Yeah.
Because there's also, of course, the other side of the argument, like, well, what if it exacerbates their desires and then they want to feel it in real life? So it's an interesting realm, and if you don't want to go down this realm, I'm sorry for pulling you into it.
No, you're good.
All right,
I'm pretty open about like anything.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, these topics seem very fascinating and prevalent.
Yeah.
Especially combined with the fact that a lot of people don't want to talk about these things.
People were very like closed off about. It's like, oh, that's just very like personal. It's like all guys in a sense we're like weirdos and like creeps to a certain point of it. So like I don't know, like just because someone is more open to talk about it doesn't mean you're not doing the same exact thing. You just don't want to admit it.
Yeah. That is a. Have you ever heard of the concept of the shadow?
The shadow.
It's a psychological concept. I think Carl Jung is the psychologist who coined it. And the idea is the shadow is the part of yourself that you don't want to admit exists. It's the part of yourself that you've kind of categorized as bad for either cultural reasons or personal reasons. Like these are the parts of you, the desires and the spirits within you that you might call evil. And there are many strange parts to the shadow and also it's just the unexplored, unconscious parts that you don't even know exist within you. But that within the shadow, you could have a miscategorized quality. Like maybe you think it's bad to be aggressive towards people. Like that's just a bad thing. No, you should always be kind to people. And so you put that within the shadow. But there are contexts in which aggression is very useful. It's very good to have. So maybe you got to take it out of the shadow. Well, the reason I bring that up is the idea of exploring the shadow, getting to just sit down and listen to and maybe have a conversation with yourself where you're honestly, without filtering, no, that's bad, I shouldn't be saying that, or that's bad, I shouldn't be thinking that. Just allow yourself to speak openly and honestly with, let's call it the darker side of you for now. And you learn so much about what it means to be a human. It's very interesting. Because then you look around at other people and you're like, oh, you have that in you too. And that's just part of what it means to be a human is that you hold, to talk dramatically for a second and maybe not 100% accurately, but from Jesus to the devil, right? Like in every person, that seems to be true. Like we all hold potential to go from one to the other. And there's such an interesting point being made by a psychologist called Jordan Peterson where he's talking about you should get to know within you how you could have become a Nazi. Because if you were to live in Germany at that time period, like 95, 98% of the people either didn't fight against the Nazis or they actively supported them. Meaning, if you lived in that time, you probably would not be the person hiding a Jew in your basement as much as you'd like to imagine that would be you. And there's a good chance you'd be the person who maybe even enjoyed the pain that a Jewish person's going through. Like, and then to look at yourself like, what steps would I have to take in my life to become that?
Right.
That just seems like a really useful thing to know about yourself, large in part so that you don't act those things out, but also so that you're not naive about what darkness exists in the world. And so maybe you're not so surprised by fucked up things people do or want. And forget exactly where I was going with that.
all good. But yeah, it's definitely a very interesting like idea. It's like it feels like your ego, your id, like the devil and the angel on your shoulder type deal, where like one's telling you not to do something while the other one's telling you to do it, something like that. But then like just exploring the idea and then putting yourself into perspective of both to see like how you would think, and then yeah, it's very, very cool. Jordan, you said Jordan Peterson, right?
Yes.
I think I've seen a couple clips of like his stuff. He was on the Joe Rogan.
Quite a few times.
Yeah, okay.
He's become a very popular figure over the last few years.
Yeah.
Controversial as well. I don't agree with everything he says, but I would definitely call him one of those friends I've never met. Like he's been super helpful at really difficult points in my life, especially in his psychology and his psychological interpretations of religion. Like, dude, he'll read over the Bible and he has lectures on it where he's reading the Bible, but he's reading it almost as a psychologist. So he's like, okay, let's say Jesus didn't literally exist. Noah's Ark didn't actually exist. Fine, okay. But these are fantasy creations designed to describe human nature and patterns in human existence. And we're describing it through fantasy. Like, fine. It's still super important and relevant in many ways, especially if you apply it with the knowledge of a psychologist. And, yeah. Oh, I love that shit.
yeah, for sure. Like, it can get... something like where it just explores like ideas that like you didn't even think of, but now they're like that topic came across you, like, and it opens up that like web of like your own thoughts, and now like, oh shit, and then you start thinking about it for yourself, then you start to form your own morals and your own ideas on it, and you're like, huh. So like then you start to debate like what stuff you do agree with, what stuff you don't agree with, and then now you're like interested in seeing how other people think on it. And then maybe they didn't think of that idea either, and then now they're exploring it for themselves. Then you come back to them and you're just like, okay, now we're not friends anymore because
whatever conclusion you come to in your investigation.
Yeah, it depends.
But but seriously, man,
yeah, it can come to that. But like, yeah, it's a very cool idea.
What controversies are there any controversies you're fascinated in, like that catch your attention?
Not necessarily. I don't really like pull myself too much into like any, like I don't typically keep myself up with like anything that's like actively going, because like a lot of people use like Twitter for like the news that they get, and like all the different like protests, riots, and all this other like political stuff that go down, and I don't really keep up with any of that. So like then I'll hear it from someone else, then like I'll have my own inputs if it's asked upon me, like how I feel about it, but I try to not like fully affiliate myself to anything, because then I don't want to like clash necessarily. It's not the fact that like I'm scared of clashing with these people, it's just like I'd rather avoid having those confrontations anyways. And it's not like my ideals are like outrightly like bad or good. It's just I have my own inputs, whether you like it or not, and I'm just not gonna say it out first or anything. Just I'll let other people kind of ask me whenever, and I'll tell you.
Oh, I love those waters. Okay, I'll ask you as much as you'd like to say, because I don't want to push into a point. What do you think are some of the most controversial like beliefs you have or opinions you hold?
Controversial beliefs that I have. Let's see. I guess can you elaborate more? Like maybe like give me an example of like something that maybe you've had, and then maybe I can kind of get like another idea out of that.
Okay. A controversial view that I have, I'll go with Trump for now. That seems like an easy one.
Okay.
That, as ridiculous as it seems, a lot of the people who support him aren't bad people. And that's a very basic, to many people, I'm sure, an obvious claim. But for some people, they just can't wrap their head around, why would you ever vote for someone like that? You must either be stupid and not see that you're being conned. You must either be racist or sexist or homophobic or something along those lines. Or maybe you're an asshole and you like to have this guy who's just throwing his dick around and his weight around, and you just like to have someone like that representing you in the country because maybe you feel like you're a downtrodden person. And a part of me believes that makes up a pretty small portion of the people who voted for Trump.
Right.
And I haven't investigated very deeply, although I look forward to the more legitimate reasons, I'll say, for why people voted for him. But in the little bit of time I've been talking to people, a lot of it just seems to be I'm existing in a different world of credibility than you are, like a different world of information.
Right.
Where I get my information from is very different from you. And if you expand that over years and years, then you can literally, what the world is, who Trump is, can be a wildly different thing from someone who's only ever lived in the realm of CNN or MSNBC or Bill Maher and so on and so forth. So I think there are some very reasonable, intelligent, good people. And maybe I'd even say, if I had to bet, I'd say that the majority of the people who voted for Trump are good people, if I had to bet right now. And due to my lack of investigation, take that for what it's worth. But I didn't vote for him. I voted for Biden, and I have my own thoughts on that. But yeah, that would be, I guess, a controversial belief.
So I guess like still not like part of like that political part of it. I guess it's kind of like, it was kind of more the way I was like raised up. of how Asian parents are. They're like, a lot of Asian parents, I would say, are like closet racist for one, and very anti-LGBT. So like growing up in that sense of like, I wasn't like scared of like diversity growing up or anything. Like I've had like a ton of friends of like very diverse groups, so I never had a problem with that necessarily. But I would say that early on I was like kind of obliviously homophobic because like it was just part of like a self-defense mechanism of like how my parents viewed it. It's just like, oh yeah, don't
gay.
Yeah,
Ooh, yeah.
exactly. It's like, oh, you know, make sure you find yourself like a nice girl or something like that, and she has to be Asian. And it's just like, oh, I don't have the choice of like anyone else at all.
Not
like
if you love me.
Right. It's just like, goddamn. So like I have to date a girl and I have to date within my race. So like I can't even explore, maybe I'm not even straight, and like maybe I want to date someone outside of, you know, Asians. Who knows? You can like a person for who they are, and just like it doesn't have to just affiliate with race, but it's just like they were raised up that way. So then for when I was like kind of younger, that's just kind of how it was for me. But then as I grew up, I started to form my own like moral on it for sure. And like I guess I've never been too, I can't think of it off the top of my head that anything that I've ever like clashed with anyone where like it was like a disagreeing like controversial thing. Like I've always just kind of stayed more like quiet about it just because I don't know enough about it to have my own input. So like everything with like that's going on that happened with like Biden and Trump, people will blame Biden for like gas prices and stuff like that, and I have no idea why. I'm just like, okay. Like, oh, it's fucking $4.50 a gallon because of Biden. What the hell did he do? I don't know. I don't know. Like, legitimately tell me, what did he do? Because I don't know.
He was fucking old, and he forgets things in his speeches. So
yeah,
gas prices. I'm creating an oversimplified version, like caricature of the
and then like there's a lot of people who hate on like Trump and stuff like that. While like I didn't vote for Trump either. I think I voted for Biden at the time. Just because I think part of me kind of hopped on like a bandwagon of like, oh, a lot of people hate Trump, but then like a lot of people who voted for Trump were like affiliated with like Confederates and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't want to necessarily put myself in that stance, but like again, like everyone is like entitled to their own like opinions for it, and you can vote for whoever you want. But I don't know. It's just like, at the time, there was a lot that was like being revealed. It was like, oh, Trump is like sexist and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I won't vote for a person who's sexist because I value like all genders, non-binary, and everything. It's just like, but there was like scandals or like videos where he was like bashing on like a woman for being a woman, and I don't know. There was other things like that. But at the same time, he also did like, I would say, some good for the country as well. Like he kept like peace in sorts. Like there was like pictures of him with Kim Jong-un, and there's pictures of him with like Vladimir Putin and stuff. Like I don't personally know what went on for those things, but we didn't go to war, so
yeah, that does seem like a good thing, right?
Yeah, so it's like I don't know what you guys talked about, but we're not in war, so I guess that's good. No, so you didn't fuck up there. But it just made me think, like, why were you there? What did you talk about? Was it just like, you know, you just wanted to have a little hangout? What's going on? So that's why, like, yeah, I never really fully dove into it because I never wanted to, like, actually, like, I don't know. I didn't, it just never interested me enough to have to, like, research that type of stuff. So I never was able to put in my input on those things because I felt like I didn't know enough to have my input be valid.
Which is such a weird part about politics nowadays, especially in America. I was listening to this TED Talk the other day. I think the guy was a political teacher, something along those lines. And he said America has a depressingly low understanding of politics, how our political system works, how power gets distributed in our society, and things along those lines. And as I pair that with one of the first things he said, too, when he said his job. And he's a political professor or something along those lines. Like, okay, and now will all of you please wake up? Because I'm sure all of you fell asleep after I said that. There's this boredom that's associated with that subject. strangely enough, like it seems often very boring when people start talking about it. No, I should say when people start digging into the actual technical details of politics, not just about the drama reality TV show quality of like, did you hear what Biden did or Trump did? And it's very often not about policy and the nitty gritty behind that.
Right.
Which is strange because I voted for Biden, but like you, it was very much due to maybe personality, a bandwagon, a fear of Trump leaning more towards what seemed like wanting to be a dictator, things along those lines. And even that I didn't deeply research. And yet I still went out and did my vote, which is so weird now that I'm thinking about it, that I voted without really doing a lot of research behind both candidates.
Yeah.
And it could easily be the case, I think, that Biden has a lot of shitty things about him that are just more behind the curtain, more hidden, whereas Trump is very out and about who he is and his beliefs, things along those lines.
And there's people out there who would probably hate on me for even voting at all, for not knowing enough between the two candidates. Like, I don't give a fuck who you voted for at this point anymore. I hate that the fact that you didn't research enough and that you're just picking a random person be our leader at this point because you don't know. If I'm just like, well, I'm sorry. I just like I'm voting because like that as my generation, you know, Gen Z, we just do that. We just, I don't know. Like we just like a lot. I feel like a lot of us as Gen Z kind of just voted to vote. Like
it's kind of what I did too, with like a kindergarten level understanding of what was actually happening.
Yeah. So like I was like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but off of like pure personality and like how this person has acted, that has shown up in media, and the way some media are biased, like some are Democratic, some are Republican. So obviously they're going to skew one side over another. And
What?
yeah, it's like there's gonna skew one side over another. So then there's like one side's gonna make Trump look bad, the other side's one side's gonna make Biden look bad or something like that. And I just kind of picked my poison, I guess, and it just chose that. But then there are people out there who was like, oh well, fuck you for voting at all.
Honestly, I wouldn't say fuck you, but I'm kind of upset, confused, maybe a little ashamed, and mostly just weirdly apathetic. Like I don't care very much about it. There's not much emotion behind it, although the more I look at it, the more it seems like I should care a little bit more about researching. But no, I was a bit upset at myself years later that I voted for really anyone without doing, like I said earlier, the due diligence. Because, you know, we're a superpower. 1, 2, I live in this country. 3, I've heard a lot of things about us going towards an empire, like being on the fall of our great nation, leaning towards a sort of civil war, deep political tension vibe. And in the midst of that, I would think that I would be deeply curious about, like, well, why are these things happening? But there was so much, like, toxicity around those topics that it felt like I just kind of didn't want to get involved. I didn't want to be part of these shit throwing contests that seem so common in the political realm, where we're just screaming at each other and making these black and white statements about you're good, you're bad, vote for this person, you're good, you're as Biden famously said, although I didn't research this, so I might just be remembering a misphrased headline, but like, you're not black if you don't vote for me.
Right.
Like, you lose your black card if you don't vote for me. It's like, what are we doing? What happened to the actual, like I was saying earlier, the technical, the science behind politics? Yeah, it seems to be kind of ridiculous at the moment, which is a bit alarming. There's an old saying of bread and circuses. The concept behind this being, when Rome was collapsing, they offered more bread and circuses, right? Free, come to our shows. We have these wacky, super entertaining shows that anybody can come to see. When you're there, we'll give you free bread, right? And so it can be a distraction from this horrible problem going on all around you. Like, as Rome's burning, you're watching lions fight slaves while you're getting free food. It's like, and that can take many forms. That a bread and circuses can be a war that's just used to distract people from a bigger problem, things along those lines. So part of me is worrying that the reality TV show-esque vibe has kind of been a distraction from more serious problems. And so, I don't know, I'm starting to take a little bit more serious of an approach towards knowing what the fuck's going on, because this is like the country I live in and that a lot of people care about, or the people I care about live in. Like pretty much all of them live here. Although weirdly, when I go outside, a lot of it still seems to be functioning.
Yeah.
Right? Like the lights are on. If I called 911, they'd probably show up quickly. I don't feel like I'm going to get shot when I leave my neighborhood.
Right.
Or maybe I'm just in a nice area and I'm not seeing it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's like, I don't know. Because, like, for me, I felt like, I was like, there's enough people out there already who will make the choices that they'll make. I'm just the type of person that will kind of, like, go with the flow of it. And it was like, okay, I'll just kind of let it, like, however it happens, it happens. I don't think my one vote would have, like, swayed it in any other way. Necessarily, but there could be also a ton of other people within that same group as me who are now not voting or not like researching it, because like as you said, like maybe I should do more research about like the country and like the like politics of the country that I live in to know more about like how my country, you know, runs. But at the same time, like I'm just trying to get by with my life and what I'm dealing with. So like while that all that stuff could be like very future stuff that like happens, like, oh, now it's your fucking fault because you didn't vote or something like that, or you didn't do your research to know how our country runs. It's like, oh fuck, I'm out here breathing.
And that is good too.
Yeah, I'm just trying to breathe. I'm just trying to live. So like,
yeah, man. There's a quote that hits me also from Jordan Peterson. It's something like, when you know what bothers you, like, now you know what you have to do. I'm paraphrasing and butchering the fuck out of this quote, but it's something along the lines of, like, what bothers you? Okay, that's what's important to you. Those are the problems that you, for whatever reason, should be focusing on. And for me personally, that's something that's been really bothering me. So maybe that's just the problem that I have to go deal with. Like the onus falls on me because I care, right? Because I actually have the desire to go look at it. And you, like you say, the things you probably care about seem to be more like local, right? This is my life. The problem is I want to get a job. I want to have good friends, things along those lines. And hey, it's like, it's your life, man. Do what's worth it to you.
Like, I kind of like think of it as like in short term and long term, but like putting myself and finding myself like a job seems more like short term, and then making the money, getting promotions, getting a house, and like moving out, I don't know, all that stuff seems more longer term. But then there's like that side that people kind of like dabble even more into. It's just like, well, now you got to think of the future of like our entire country and like your potential living position, I guess, living position, and like how your jobs could like turn out if you don't learn more about like politics and stuff like that. I was just like, well, true, but when it happens, it happens.
Man,
that's a
weird one.
I still am not gonna like think of it too far into like the long terms, because for me, it's like maybe because I don't have the capacity to handle both my short-term and long-term goals, in the sense of like, now like my capacity was just like filled up to already just think about those things. Well, maybe other people can think about it even further, and you know, kudos to them to be able to like research all of that and, you know, try and fight for like what's better for our country in the long run. But I can't really fully dabble into it. I'm sorry that I can't.
No, fair enough. There's a interesting rule of thumb that like, make your bed before you go out to change the world. Like, fix your room. Like, can you handle and fix your local problems? Like, do I literally have a messy room? I just live in a tornado of chaos. Are you paying your bills on time? Do you have good relationships with your friends? Like, can you get all that stuff in order? And if you can't, well, what business do you have trying to go and change some of the most complicated systems in existence, meaning the political systems, the economic systems? And this was also like a bit of a bash on activism culture, where people go into like straight out of high school, like you're a fucking kid and you're being taught in college. Well, this was at least the argument. I don't know how true it is, but you're being taught right out of the gate to go lobby for this law being passed, like try and make big change in your country. Like, what do you know about your country? How do you know you're even making positive changes? Like, you don't know how this system works in all likelihood. You just got out of fucking high school where the thing you cared about most was, I don't know, hanging out with your friends or getting money to go to the movie theaters. And now you're trying to change the world of like global politics. Like, get your shit together first. And I personally also have to get a lot more of my shit together.
Same.
But I think a lot of it, I think, also has to do with making disappoint. I don't like the way the guy phrased it, but in the TED Talk I was talking earlier, he's like, I want to make politics sexy again. And I kind of hated that phrasing. But in the same token of making exercise more playful again, where so many people now seem to have the like no pain, no gain, just go and grind mentality, like where you're trying to dive into, you're making it a painful, miserable activity essentially, and that's like the culture like surrounding it. If you're making it miserable, you're doing it right. Like that's what exercise is. Like, really, is that you have
like,
to?
Oh, so I have to like hurt. I have to like everything. It's like, oh,
I have to
why
break
would I
myself?
want?
Yeah.
Why would I want it? But then there's people out there who like, oh yeah, I fucking love that pain.
Yeah,
like, okay.
Yeah. There are some more, I don't know, masochistic exercises who get great results from it. Sure, if that's your thing, enjoy it. But I guess I'm just saying, like, maybe there is a responsibility of people involved in politics to make it more interesting for the layman, something that you actually want to listen to, and not like falling asleep 2 seconds into. Either that's funny. The two extremes either seem to be falling asleep or screaming at the TV, as opposed to like I'm reasonably engaged and like interested in what's being talked about. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, how does it affect me and my life and my loved ones and all that?
Like if you throw to me with like some politics with like maybe some crayons, then maybe I can understand. Like, but other than that, it's like it's very, like you said, like very black and white. Of like it just goes back and forth. People saying this thing, and they're just like the opposite of that. Then it's just debating back and forth, and nothing's being like nothing's happening. I'm like, well, I don't even know.
There's a great quote by Einstein. It's like, if you can't explain it simply, like in a way that a kid can understand, you probably don't understand it. Which is a very interesting thing, because like maybe it's not so bad of a thing to have it explained to you in the crayon sort of way. Because if someone is so skilled and understands it so solidly, they can explain it to you accurately while also making it palatable for a novice. Well, then maybe you're learning from the like a master, an expert, something like that.
That's derailing a little bit of like how if you can't explain it in the terms of how kids would understand it, then how do you expect people to like legitimately understand it? That's how kind of coding works. Because computers are stupid as shit. And to program anything, you have to tell them literally everything on how to do it before they can do it. Then they're smart. But it requires you to kind of like, so like when you're being taught it, you can't use the terms of coding of like for its face value, because no one's gonna know what the fuck you're talking about. You have to explain it in like more kid terms first, and like, okay, now that's what this means.
That's what I need, because I don't understand shit about coding.
Listen, I have a degree in it, and I still don't.
That's what Robert said.
This is more on the business side of it. I believe he's doing management information systems. Accent just came out for some reason. I have a certificate, or like kind of like a minor in what he's majoring in, and I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing. It's crazy. Like that's why like there's a whole idea behind it. Sorry that I'm derailing again.
You're done. Go for it.
But there's like this whole crazy idea. It's like, oh, I need to go to college in order to get a job. Back then, sure, to be able to like get like a potential 6-figure paying job, you probably needed a degree back then. But now it's like people can get the same jobs that I want, and like even higher positions than that, without a degree.
Interesting. I hear the reverse is true.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like people can get this. Everything now depends on like networking and who you know. So like while it's like, oh, it's like I don't have a degree, or it's like, oh, okay, well, let me talk to some people and see what I can do. And before you know it, like potentially, if that person has enough sway, that person without a degree can now work for this like crazy big company to do whatever it is that they do. is crazy to think is just because like people are paying like crazy amounts of money for tuition for this piece of paper saying that I've studied this when someone else could just be like, oh, well, I researched just as much, if not more, than a person who has this degree. I just don't have that paper that says that I did. But it's like when you look at it like that, it's just like,
well, then shouldn't that person get the job?
Yeah.
If they're more competent, yeah.
It's like I'm confident enough to tell you that I know this shit. I just didn't have the money. Maybe they didn't have the money to go to school for it. But that person who's hiring you is like, well, I need that paper to tell me that you did study it. But they very well could have been way smarter. There's people out there who are way smarter than me in coding and everything, but I have the degree in it. So
That's a very fascinating thing, man, because I love the idea of being able to know as much, if not more, than someone who has a degree without having a degree.
Exactly.
I love that, especially with the internet. Like, do you know how many college courses are for free on the internet? How many professionals can teach you on YouTube for free if you just have the desire?
Exactly. It's crazy to think about because like the degree that you like a degree nowadays is just a selling point of like, oh, okay, well, you're a person who dedicated like the only thing that comes out of it is like, okay, I know you studied it and I know that you put enough work and like eagerness into learning it to get the degree. Like you suffered through it to get it. Sure. But that doesn't like wipe out the people who didn't go to college. Like they probably still suffered just as much trying to study it and understand it for themselves without like a person that they're paying like a lot of money to teach you to do. So, you know, it's like, so the idea that you have to go to college, you don't have to go to college. Sure, while it may help you get as like for that selling point, if you have the money to go to college for it, then sure, why not like have a person teach it for you rather than you trying to learn it for yourself. But if you don't need to and you don't want to, you don't have to. But like, I don't know, this is like, I guess growing up as in an Asian household, very much like I mentioned before, school, get your degree and then now do this, and they expect so much out of that. But like my mom had I tried telling my mom the exact same thing I just told you, but she could not grasp that idea because it's just like old-fashioned way of thinking. Like all she knew was work, but work that didn't require a degree. So she knew that I could get something way better if I had a degree. But I tried telling her, it was like, people have been able to get jobs that I want and desire without the degree and then without paying like $50,000, $60,000 of tuition. Thank God I went to Rowan for free.
Oh,
but,
fuck yeah.
So there's no excuse for me not to go. So I got the degree for free, but it's just the point of like even if I didn't enjoy it, like I could have very well said that I just don't want to do it. But because it was free, sure, why not? Why not have that little selling point? But if you
just don't want to,
then you don't have to. And so there's so much like negative stigmas behind like people who don't want to go to college, and there's people who like I think people like I don't think Bill Gates has a college degree.
I heard Steve Jobs didn't either.
Yeah, and they're way like really big figures in tech company who have built like a billionaire or $1 billion company, and it's just crazy to think that like people can't necessarily grasp that idea. So I mean, the whole point of this was just like, you don't need to go to college for all of that to really understand it. You can really teach yourself almost anything. I don't know if you know, or like keep up with, like, I guess in this like gaming industry, gaming world of, do you know who Michael Reeves is?
Is he a coder?
Yeah.
Did he make Doom?
No.
Then no.
Okay. He's part of this one group called Offline TV. And he learned coding. He's like a genius, by the way, but he's also really fucking funny. Like he has all these like great comedy skits that he does on YouTube, but he's also like just nonchalantly a genius. Like it's crazy.
The best kind of genius.
Yeah, it's like crazy because like it just seems like he's able to just sponge all these ideas, but he makes like it like seems so fun to be able to do what he does. And he got coding lessons for free because Harvard has like coding stuff online. So he just like, and it's for free. So he went on there and just learned that. And now he's out here like making comedy skits on like building because I think he has a degree in engineering, but he also learned coding for it. So he's out here now like making tasers just for fun, and like obviously non-lethal voltage of it, but but yeah, then he like did it in a nonchalant way where he like sat his friends in a chair, but this chair is electrified. So it's almost like it's an electric chair, but non-lethal dose of it's just. But it's like this, like it's like that one like prank toy before it was like a fake phone, or like the shaker.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So like it's like when you press a button, it like shakes your hand, it like rumbles your hand in a certain way. Where it's like, what the fuck was that? It's kind of the same thing with what he did with this chair, and then he sat in it, and he made it where it's just like if you don't find Waldo in time, the chair shocks you. So it's like he built in this whole eye tracker thing too, where it's like you legitimately have to see Waldo. Like you can't just say that you found him. You legitimately have to find Waldo, and if you don't, the chair. Why can I not say chair? Chair shocks you. So like he makes all these fun things out of like something that people were like grueling over. People like me who spent like all this time trying to learn how to code, and then for him it was just so nonchalant, and he just sponged it up, and he's having so much fun doing it.
That makes me wonder if the best people at any given thing truly are the people who love it. Because I've heard that from people who are called the GOATs at a given thing, like the greatest of all fucking time, that to have to be at this level at anything, you have to love it. You have to want to be in there more than anyone else, and that oftentimes that seems to take the form of love. Maybe sometimes that can take the form of like I'm doing this out of a rage, like I just need to fucking do this because I don't know, I hate what not knowing this has gotten me. Like, I don't know, for fighting, if you got fucked up one time, so you hated that feeling, and that just pushed you to become the greatest of all time. But at least I heard that to be at the highest level, you have to love it, which is very interesting. So, like...
Sorry, my brother just keeps calling me.
Oh, no, yeah, you're good. We've been at this for a minute.
Oh, yeah, let me take this real quick.
Yes. No, you're good, man. Yeah, we've been at this. This is the longest podcast I've done.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I usually go to like 2 hour 30, 2 hour 40. We are now an hour past any of those points.
Oh, wow.
We're at 3.5 hours.
Jesus. Wow. It has not felt that long.
Yeah, right?
That's
I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, that's the crazy beauty of like podcasts is like you can just keep on talking. I find myself doing that a lot with like friends and family, like my cousins. Sometimes like we'll just be talking. Like there's one cousin I have that's just like I don't see him for like a while, and there was one time we just stayed up all night talking, right? And it's not even catching up. It's just like all these different topics that we want to talk about now.
Dude, late night conversations are consistently the best conversations I've ever fucking had. Like at a sleepover where you're really tired, the filters kind of go down, and you just say whatever the fuck comes to mind.
Yeah.
That is like the most deep, hilarious conversations I've ever had, like without question. I've been with the homies and it's like 3 a.m. and we said we were going to sleep 3 hours ago.
It's like saying bye like 5 times, and it's just like oh yeah, bye, and then like but then like oh then you like talk about this one thing, and then like the bye happens again like an hour later. It's just like oh shit.
Oh, dude, that was the best when we would be at a family's house and our parents are like, oh, we're going, like get ready to say bye, and we're like, we're going to be here like an hour, 2 hours more. But the key is you can't go down and let them see you, because if they see you, they'll be reminded and then they'll like go. So you just got to stay out of sight and get every last minute you can with your cousins. And then like 2 hours would pass by.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, okay, for real this time. Then another half hour. Then you really leave. Yeah.
But it's always like a bye. It's like, oh yeah, come by next time. We'll do this, and this. And oh yeah, by the way, this person.
By the way, yeah.
It's always that by the way, and then that's what
gets you. Dude, I saw, oh my God, this Dave Chappelle stand up. It wasn't one of his specials or anything. It was just him at a random club with like 13 people in the audience. And it started with like 30. And by the end of it, there's like 5 people left in the audience. And he's like really famous while this is going on. He's not like on the come up, but every now and then he'll say like, oh yeah, this will be my last joke, and he says that like 5 times, and it's like a 5-hour set
Oh my god.
Well, I swear to God, it's wonderful. Because at this point, he's getting really close with the people in the audience. So there are back and forths going on with these people that he's never met before.
So like, does he expect people to kind of just like leave, like get up and leave if they just?
Pretty much, like, yeah. He's at like a bar or something. I think this was a stand-up he didn't plan on doing. He's kind of famous for going to a place last minute and just be like, hey, I'm here. Can I get a spot? And he's Dave Chappelle, so he gets a spot.
Yeah.
And then he'll just sometimes, like 5 hours. And I listened to the whole thing, and I love the whole thing. It was like a late night where I'm playing video games the whole night, and it's just me sitting in this audience with everybody else, listening to it with him, and it was fucking, it was wonderful.
Yeah. It's crazy. I was like, I've always thought about it too, because like I've always had these like deep thoughts or deep talks with like my brother, my friends, like Robert and stuff like that. And then like we're done, and we just take that breath of like relief. I was like, we just realized that we've been talking for hours, and we're just like, we should have a podcast.
Fuck yeah, dude. Seth has been my number one to go to with that, where we'll just sit in the car and we're done hanging out, right? And we'll easily cut through like 4 hours of just whatever the fuck. And just sit in the car, and it's like, oh shit, dude, it's 2 a.m. All right, peace out, man. And like another half hour, and then we go, right?
Yeah. See, like I've never even seen that side of Seth before, like, or it's just like in school, I've always just seen him like here and there, and like we'll just have like an exchange of like a joke once or twice, and then we'll just be on our way. And then like it's so different to see when you can talk deep with someone, you really start to understand like a different personality, a different part of them.
Like, I didn't know he had so many layers,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So then like seeing a video where you were talking to like Seth and stuff like that, I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is like a part of Seth I've never even like.
Layers donkey.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, I love peeling them back, man. Getting to know the heart of someone. It's one of my favorite things to do.
For sure.
Get down to the soul.
Yeah.
The spirit. You might say the spirit of a nation. You might say.
Cue the music.
Yeah, right. Almost called you Robert. Benji. Thank you, sir.
Of course.
Coming on, this was beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. That'll be the closer.